Good evening and welcome to the San Bruno City Council regular meeting of May the 14th, 2024. Meeting is called to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarez. Here. Councilmember Hamilton.
Here.
Councilmember Marty Medina.
Here.
Vice Mayor Salazar.
Here.
Mayor Rico Medina.
Here. If you would, if you're able, rise with me for the pledge this evening. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we'll have public comment. I believe we have several cards, so we're going to do 2 minutes per speaker. Just as a reminder, if you had wanted to be, and City Clerk, I see another slip. So please provide the slip in the particular designated agenda item, and then she'll be calling you up. You'll have 2 minutes. Members of the public cannot defer their time to another person. And so when it is your time, if you would just come up and the timer will start once you speak. In the interest of facilitating city business, members of the audience were please asked not to jeer, boo, applaud, or cause any disruption during the meeting, including times where other members of the public are speaking at the podium. If a disruption occurs, I will call a recess. I also have the right to request removal of any member of the audience who disrupts the meeting. No member of the audience should be speaking until they are called upon and come to the podium. And please provide your comments here toward the City Council. So with that, City Clerk.
First 5 speakers are Maria Concha, followed by David Nigel, followed by William Wessel, followed by Sedena Traxler, and finally Natalie J.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor, and everyone in the audience. My name is Maria Concha, and I live in the Avenues. And there were some issues that I wanted to bring forth to people's attention, just that I've seen in the past few weeks. Now, with the implementation of the new parking, the machines on San Mateo Avenue, and I understand people are a little perturbed at the fact that it's $1.50 to park on San Mateo Avenue. But also you need to remember that we have parking lots, several of them, where it's 50 cents an hour. And there's plenty of parking. Granted, it might be a little bit of an inconvenience, but I think, at least in my opinion, that the $1.50 for the 2-hour stretch was put there because of the problem we had with double parking. It keeps the traffic flowing, it keeps people going, and you know, it's if you find it great, more power to you, but you've got parking nearby other businesses downtown. Also, that we still have an issue with having receipts printed in Spanish when you ask for receipts in English. And I mean, I think it's kind of funny in a way after a while, but still can be a little bit, I don't know, I won't say off-putting, but at least it's a receipt. And then also, finally, we've done, or our city has done a great job in doing re-landscaping along the First Avenue side east of Caltrain. And we've got new foliage around, the trees are growing great and everything, but we have an issue with people not picking up after their dogs. And we personally, we have two big dogs at my house, and let me tell you, we go with a roll of bags every time we go out. And for a while, we started picking up after other people, but you know, that's not my job. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council, you all know me, David Nigel. I've been a resident since 1959, a proud resident of the city with a heart. I'm also proud of the fact that I've given 60 years of voluntary service, starting a basketball league when we didn't have one with all 12 elementary schools. I think we're down to 6 now. And I'm very proud of that. Tomorrow night at the commission meeting, I'll be celebrating finishing 54 years. I'm the longest serving park commissioner in the United States. And tomorrow, and I was talking to Councilman Salazar, who was in Washington, D.C., and he met the mayor of Santa Monica. And Phil says, "Do you know Dave Nigel from San Bruno?" And I told you that when you honored me on February 22nd with the Extraordinary Service Award in the park. And that really touched me in the heart. I want to talk about the street in front of our house, south of John Muir School. We have about 2,000 cars a week, and the street is falling apart. I hope that somebody would address that, because it's getting worse and worse. And the last thing I want to talk about, and I want to address Tom and Marty, and I respect when you brought up the fact of the ceasefire in Gaza, and I understand it from a humanitarian point, but unless I didn't hear you, I did not hear you condemn Hamas. Hamas, a terrorist organization by our government, and a group that murdered viciously unarmed people with children, cutting off their heads. There's a display in Washington, New York, that you can see all the things that came out of that event. That was a ceasefire, October 6th. Hamas started the war. And
Time
up?
Time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council people. My name is William Wessel. I'm a 69-year resident of San Bruno. I think it was Mark Twain who said that nothing gets your mind more focused than the prospect of a hanging. And this is not a question of a hanging, but it is a question of the parking. My church has been in San Bruno for over 100 years. It's one of the few institutions that has been in this town for over 100 years. We have always used the parking, which is directly across from the church. When we saw the signs go up, we wanted to know what was going on. There was discussion that ensued. Thoughts were, well, Sundays are considered holidays. You can Google it, there it is. But then on the other hand, there are some Google statements that say, that leave out Sundays altogether. Well, I said, let me check. I'll go to either Deering's Code or Westlaw, whatever, I'll check. Or I'll check with the city. But before that happened, we received in the mail through the water bill a statement that said hours of parking enforcement operation are Mondays through Friday and Saturdays. This is the document we received. So everybody said, okay, we don't have to worry about it. Unfortunately, we got citations. The minister got a citation after being there only an hour and a half. One other person got a citation. These citations are $50. We have a Montessori school. Those people have to pay $3.50 a day. After you add it up, that's almost $7,800. Not $7,800, $780.
Your time is up.
That is a concern
time.
to the city, I mean to the people of our church.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Next, please.
Hold it. Is that okay? Hi, Council. The assault that occurred to one of our community members 2 weeks ago is the responsibility of this council. One of our community members was physically and verbally assaulted during a weekly family-friendly rally on El Camino. They were called an effing terrorist and an effing Arab, while also being pushed into oncoming traffic on El Camino. This is a hate crime. Your silence has allowed and emboldened others to feel empowered to attack your Arab, Palestinian, and Muslim constituents. Your silence is violence. You denied the call of your constituents to pass a ceasefire resolution to use your power to speak out against an ongoing genocide, which again is a local issue, as you now know your community is being attacked for being Arab and Palestinian. You have continuously put up barricades and signage around this room, separating you all from your community as if to show the public that your constituents are violent, when truly it is all. On March 12th, in a council meeting, we had the San Bruno chief of police attempt to stop Muslims during the second day of Ramadan from breaking fast and praying inside the senior center lobby. This council continues to perpetuate anti-Arab, anti-Palestinian, Islamophobic tropes in the city. You guys are all racist, Islamophobic, and supporters of white supremacy in our community. You are the violent ones. We will not forgive you or forget. The lack of leadership from this council is embarrassing. Your silence is violence. Again, you sitting all up there, your silence is violence.
No clapping, please. No clapping, please. Next speaker, please.
Hi, Honorable Mayor and Council members. My name is Sedana Trexler. I am a business owner on the Avenue, twice as nice Bay Area, and I just wanted to speak on the parking. So the new parking program implemented in downtown San Bruno has made a noticeable difference in our community, and I think it's fair to say that it's made both a negative and a positive impact depending on your perspective. From our personal perspective and from discussions with our neighbors and customers, it is clear that the program is working. There has been an increase in turnovers, improving traffic flow, and our elderly residents are now have easier access to prime parking spots near establishments. Moreover, we've seen an uptick in new customers, both intentional visitors and passerbyers who can now find parking as they stop by. Looking ahead, once any initial issues are resolved and the program settles in, I believe we all envision a revitalized downtown, and the Centennial renovations and the beautification projects that are going on. A special thank you to the Community Service Department again, and the Community Foundation for their contributions and the support of the city. Thank you for all of that. As for the revenue generated from the parking, it would be prudent to invest it back into the community, perhaps in maintenance and continued beautification projects, infrastructure and improvements, supporting local initiatives to further enhance the downtown experience for residents and visitors. I'm just curious to know, has there been any discussion or plans for such a future with that revenue? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Next speakers are Justin, Cam, Mariana, MJ, and followed by Shauna.
Hello, Council. Hello, Council. I'm back here again, and I'm here to make a comment on the city's lack of leadership in regards to the ceasefire resolution, as well as its response to our community member being assaulted. The fact is that it's not an isolated incident. There was community members from South City and San Bruno that were assaulted just weeks ago in South City, where there was another peaceful rally. I believe over a couple days ago in Menlo Park, there were people putting up pro-peace, pro-ceasefire banners over the highway who were accosted and physically threatened and had all their belongings thrown into Highway 101. And in San Bruno, we had a community member assaulted, pushed into oncoming traffic, and had his property damaged, all the while the police stood by and did nothing, even with witness testimony and with damaged property. I just think that it's ridiculous that the city continues with its inaction, it continues with silence. It's a show of poor leadership, and I think the city needs to do something. The city needs to do a better job of reaching out to its community, needs to do a better job of addressing the lack of action, and needs to do a better job of showing its Palestinian Arab, and Muslim community that it cares. Because right now, it definitely doesn't seem like you do at all. It feels like you're not taking them seriously. It feels like you don't take people who are being hurt, physically hurt, seriously, and that's a serious issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, council and city staff. I'm here today to bring up two things to your attention. The first is a stretch of road on Skyline in front of the second entrance to San Andreas Lake Trail is extremely dangerous. Drivers pull out of their parking spots and swing illegal U-turns while oncoming traffic is whizzing by at 50 miles per hour or above. I'm asking the city to place flexible delineator round posts for several yards to prevent drivers from making illegal U-turns. The trail is frequented by families, bikers, runners, and walkers alike. I'm running on the trail up to 3 times a week and witness these illegal U-turns happening, and it's a true miracle that someone has not died yet from the way these cars drive and the way that they swing these U-turns. Please take this into consideration and put something up, maybe additional signage if possible. The second item I'd like to bring up is on Thursday, May 2nd, a community member of San Bruno was assaulted by a deranged, racist individual on El Camino. The individual targeted our community simply because we are Arab, Muslim, and Palestinian. Our community member was called an effing terrorist and an effing Arab over and over again as this racist individual assaulted our community member. I was 12 years old when 9/11 happened, and I've been called a terrorist more times than I can count. So this is deeply triggering for me, and it's deeply triggering that someone from San Bruno, of all places, could feel so emboldened to insult a community member here simply for being Palestinian. I'm shocked that this could actually happen, and I find it unacceptable. We cannot let hate and racism go unchecked in our city. Please acknowledge the pain that we've endured for the last 7 months. Please acknowledge that Muslims and Arabs have contributed to the fabric of the city and that we deserve to live in dignity as we walk these streets. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please. No clapping, please.
Good evening. I'm here just to echo some of the fellow community members as well. What planet are we living on when a man can pull over and park 40 yards away, run through traffic, attack someone exercising their First Amendment right, yell racial slurs, call him an effing terrorist and an effing Arab, assault him, throw him into oncoming traffic where he could have been killed and lost his life. And on top of that, he doesn't get arrested. With no public statement from the city or the police department denouncing this obvious is a hate crime and assault. You people should be ashamed of yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is MJ, and I'm 15 years old. And I believe that a ceasefire will help prevent future racist and unjust violence in the future. And I wrote you this poem about it, actually, so allow me to read that. This is not an issue that should cause a divide. There are no two sides in a genocide. This is not a matter of Jew versus Arab. It's a matter of oppressor versus oppressed and white versus brown. Look at how much we have regressed if we have to sit around and decide if speaking out on apartheid is all right. If you don't know why a ceasefire should be passed, then I urge you to promptly pull your head out of your ass, because there are children in Gaza eating grass who haven't bathed in anything for months except for in white phosphorus gas. So while you sit on your hands with your head in the sand, your silence enables violence. Calling for a ceasefire won't be a mistake, because you're only as loud as the noise that you make, and silence is violent, especially in the form of remaining compliant in a Zionist genocide. And just know that neutrality is anything but neutral. And hour by hour and minute by minute, you got the power, so what will you do with it? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
I don't really know how to follow that. My name is Shauna. I'm a resident of San Bruno. I think that passing a ceasefire resolution would ensure safety for all community members. The recent Zionist violence in
San Mateo County, which has been fueled by lack of support from this city council and others, is a huge part of the problem. My kids and I have been attending the weekly rallies here since February, and before this incident, they were a place to come together with local community, grieve, and use our voices. We came minutes after the assault in front of City Hall, and I was angry but not surprised to see the aggressor not arrested and able to drive off with no consequences. The kids who did witness the assault were shaken up. Please move forward with a ceasefire resolution. This is a local issue. Standing up for your community is the best step forward for all of us. Isn't that why you're in the position that you're in?
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Next speakers are Oren Rubenstein, Heba Free, Stephanie, Anne Frank, and Ellen.
Hi there, City Council. I'm here to thank you for voting or for recognizing tonight the Jewish Heritage Month. I think it's really important to recognize the contribution that Jewish people have made in San Bruno and just generally throughout our society. And I, as a resident, I'm thankful for that. I think a lot of the things that we hear and have heard tonight are really toxic and awful and made up mostly. And I'd like to say that as somebody who's actually been deeply affected by what's going on in Israel, I'm here to state that it's really important that the City Council stands up for a minority like Jews that are here. They're also being victimized. Most people are even afraid to come to these meetings because they're generally toxic and violent. I mean, I personally experienced that in San Francisco when I went to a meeting where I was catcalled with pig noises and told I was a liar and I should go kill myself, all because my family in Israel, my immediate family, 5 members of my family were murdered on October 7th, and 2 of them were taken hostage, and they were released, in November when they had that first release. And one of them, my cousin, this is my first cousin, my mom's sister's kid, his body is still in Gaza. He's listed as one of the hostages, but we know it's only part of his body that they took. And as an aside, we only buried him in February. It took that long to identify a remain. It doesn't happen in 2 days, like it's claimed otherwise. And I'd also like to add one thing. There are 2 million proud Israeli Arabs who live in Israel, who serve in the IDF, who are in every aspect of government, from the highest to city councils and everywhere in between. And there are more Muslim citizens of Israel than there are Jews in all of Europe.
Time. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi. I want to thank our City Council for their continued willingness to have dialogue with its constituents and for recognizing different types of real divide within our community. I want to share that the Jewish residents of San Bruno wrote a letter about the rise of anti-Semitism we have experienced and our concerns about safety right here in San Bruno. We spoke to many neighbors, allies, and constituents here that fully support us in our asks of the city to do more about fighting anti-Semitism. So I want to thank you for your leadership and willingness to address this. I want to also call out that the majority of San Bruno is not represented here at this meeting, and they still stand with you on your choice not to agendize a ceasefire resolution. Since that chapter is now closed, I would love for our San Bruno community to start to look at ways we can foster dialogue and peace within our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Michael, Rico, Sandy, you are directly complicit in not only the crimes against humanity happening in Gaza, but the ones happening here on your very own home turf. Your silence is compliance with white supremacy. Your spinelessness has emboldened racists to attack your law-abiding citizens. Your silence has emboldened them to commit attempted murder simply because they didn't like them proudly representing their Palestinian heritage. Not only have you encouraged this behavior by failing to condemn the senseless killing of innocent Palestinians, but you've also empowered your very own police force to disregard very serious crimes happening here simply because we're Palestinian. This isn't an isolated incident either. In South City, a group of peaceful ralliers were also verbally and physically assaulted. Not only do these people feel supported in attacking autonomous adults, they're committing these atrocities and traumatizing acts in front of babies and children. Sandy, how would you feel if San Bruno supported people attacking your family due to their Filipino heritage? Michael, Rico, how would you feel if the Latino community was targeted in this regard? It's absolutely shameful that you guys can't even do the bare minimum and validate the sanctity of our lives and safety.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hello, City Council. I'm here to echo what everyone else is saying about how your inaction has directly contributed to the lack of safety that we feel and this very assault that our community member experienced, assault and hate crime, a blatant assault and hate crime. And the man was able to just leave without any consequences. What we saw that day, the lack of consequences, the overt anti-Arab and Islamophobia that was shown to our community, but also to the police officers who came. The man continued to call the community member an effing Arab, an effing terrorist, saying that this person needs to go back to their country and that this is his country. And it was done in front of the police too. And the police don't have the integrity or the moral clarity to see who the aggressor is. Our community all over the country is coming under attack from people like this, and they're continuously getting away with it. We're seeing it on the news. We're seeing it at universities, at UCLA, where these people are coming and harassing, assaulting, lighting fireworks at protesters, peaceful protesters, people who are asking for peace and for a war to end. Some people say behind closed doors that you all are not Islamophobic, you're not anti-Arab, and that people who are like that vehemently hate Arabs. But if you had any cultural competency training, you would understand that there's overt discrimination and covert discrimination. And your covert discrimination the night of the 12th, not allowing our community to pray, was disgusting. And all of this is also disgusting.
Time. Thank you for your comments. Next speakers, please.
Next speakers, Josh Smith, followed by Kinda D, followed by Wissam D, followed by Nicole Hahn, and Jay Texan.
Hello, everybody. I am a resident of San Bruno. Today is the modern state of Israel's 76th Independence Day, so a very fitting day to have this meeting. This day holds profound significance, embodying the realization of a long-held dream of a homeland. It symbolizes the culmination of providing a safe haven for Jews from all corners of the globe, and a place where diversity thrives, like the Baha'i, the Druze, Israeli Arabs, Jews, Christians, Muslims, and other ethnic and religious minorities. From what I've heard today, and I know you have heard over the previous city council meetings, I would really like to find a way for the Arab and Palestinian and Jewish communities to come together, to not bring problems from around the world here, but instead find ways that we can build bridges with each other and to live in peace. This is all of our community. And I would like to see us stop tearing each other apart and to start coming together. And if the city can provide any kind of forum for that, that would be very much welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Council. I'm here today to address the attack of our community member that happened a couple weeks ago, an intentional attack. We in San Bruno have been peacefully protesting for a ceasefire for the past 4 months. 2 weeks ago, a community member was met with intentional violence by meeting him in the middle of El Camino and nearly killing him by pushing him into oncoming traffic, calling him an effing Arab and a terrorist. The city's police inaction continues to enable this violence. We've also seen peaceful protesters against universities across the nation who have been met with violence by Zionist and city-state police. So this is no coincidence. Something needs to happen, and it needs to happen now. This also sets a trigger for me because in 2001, I was a freshman in high school at Cappuccino right here, and I wore this kufiya there, and I was met by two Israelis who cornered me and called me an effing Arab and a terrorist at 14 years old. And they said, you could throw all your rocks and we'll meet you with our Israeli Uzis. I had to go to counseling for that because I was assaulted, verbally assaulted in high school. So yes, this is a trigger for me, and the city needs to act upon this immediately. We cannot let this slide. Neither shall a nation let something like this slide. And if we're here trying to proclamate the independence of Israel, let it be known that that's also the same day my grandparents were kicked out violently in their homes.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Evening, Council and staff. I'm here to discuss the racist incident that took place in front of City Hall on May 2nd, where a San Bruno Palestinian community member was physically and verbally assaulted during our weekly family-friendly rally, with absolutely no consequences to the perpetrator. What I'd like to bring to your attention is that since the start of our engagement, our community has been subjugated to displays of stereotyping, Islamophobia, over-policing, and complete disregard of respect and humanity. I'd like to specifically remind Councilmember Salazar that during one of our meetings you expressed you wanted to ensure the safety of everyone in this city. While admirable, I mentioned to you that the safety of Palestinians is constantly overshadowed and undermined by our public servants, as we are seeing this across universities and now here on our home front. I ask you all, where is your accountability? What will this council and the chief of police do to ensure our community gets justice and remains safe? Enough is enough.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Nicole, and I'm a lifelong, can you hear me? And I'm a lifelong resident of District 2, and I'm deeply dedicated to the city. It pains me to see some of our leadership fail to represent and support the diverse fabric of our community. Your lack of acknowledgement emboldens violence and threatens the well-being of us all. Mayor Rico Medina, council members Michael Salazar and Sandy Alvarez, you all rejected the ceasefire resolution, stating that you don't discuss global matters in local governments. If this were just a global issue, why was a community member attacked while the aggressor walks away unscathed? If this were just global, why is our government passing laws conflating anti-Israel sentiments with anti-Semitism? The consequences of inaction reverberate through our community, reflecting the silence of our elected officials who prioritize political agendas over humanity. However, come November, the majority will rise with unprecedented activation, ensuring that the next elected officials in our city are chosen based on principles rather than complicity. Thank you.
Speaker, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jemalee Texan, and I am one of the business owners in downtown San Bruno. I would like to acknowledge the program implemented in the regards of parking. It has made a huge difference to our downtown. We see less drivers double parking, less stress for our clients, customers, and employees to find parking. I also see less riffraff behind the parking lots when folks are normally hanging out, smoking pot so openly and getting wasted. I hope that with this change implemented, we can also find resolution and make adjustments as we move forward with changes that affects our downtown. As a business owner, I am proud to be a part of this community. And with that said, we request for some fine-tuning. Certain businesses may not need for their customers to pay an hour just to pick up a cup of coffee. Also, it may be a good idea to provide businesses a QR code stickers so that we can help navigate customers on how to use the system. We have a lot of seniors that aren't used to the kiosk and has a hard time figuring it out. At the end of the day, we can all agree that we all want to flourish as a strong, solid community. The success of each and every business is the success of our community. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speakers, please.
Next speakers are Jason Pollard, followed by Matt Jones, followed by Aretz Yisrael, followed by Natalie Savin, and finally followed by Steve Weiss.
Honorable Mayor and council members, I want to thank you for your leadership in focusing on local issues and not bringing forth a resolution on foreign policy for which none of you were elected to get involved with. There is pain on both sides of the issue. No one wants war. No one wants war. Everyone wants peace. Everyone deserves peace. I'm not going to debate about what a genocide is and why the war in Gaza is not that. Islamophobia is not okay. Anti-Semitism is not okay. Anti-Zionism is not okay. It should be acknowledged that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. I want to thank you for listening to the actual majority of residents who want you to focus on local issues like parking and street conditions, where you actually can affect change on your community, not the minority who shout the loudest. Lastly, I'd like to echo what one of the speakers said before me about the council possibly providing a forum for all sides to come together and build bridges in this community. Thank you for your ongoing leadership.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matt. I wanted to acknowledge that I went on the website and I saw that San Bruno posted a place where you could pick up United Against Hate posters during that month that was celebrated. I think it was October or November last year. And that we've seen a number of different proclamations that have come up month after month, recognizing different communities. I think it's wonderful that the city is acknowledging the diversity of the community here. I see that we have for May, recognizing Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander communities, the Jewish American community, and I just wanted to say it's wonderful. We need to, honor our tradition of having a diversity in this community, and if we do have, tension between different communities, to have that discussion peacefully, to honor, public, the right to protest in public, if we feel strongly about an issue. And so I do want to just echo some of the comments that I've heard from some of the Palestinian community about the incident that occurred recently, and the trauma that's caused a lot of them. So, and I also wanted to acknowledge that at the South San Francisco meeting recently, that there was a ceasefire resolution that was adopted, and there was a huge swath of the community that showed up in support of that. It was people of all backgrounds, including the Jewish community. And with regards to Jewish American Heritage Month, I wanted to note that there are organizations like Jewish Voice for Peace that are doing a wonderful job advocating for peace in Palestine-Israel region right now. So I just want to encourage that everyone feels safe in this community, and that we are able to voice our opinions in a way that is respectful, and when harm happens, that we take action.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
I want to thank the council members for not passing a resolution for a ceasefire, for sticking to your job and dealing with issues in San Bruno and not getting involved in international issues. Thank you very much. I want to tell you that the truth is we should have been coming here often to thank you every time that there were people asking you to do it. But we didn't come, or I didn't come, because I was scared. And a lot of people in our community are not showing up to these meetings in San Bruno and in other city council meetings because they're scared. I received text messages and calls from people in the community who tell me that they'd love to come, but they're scared to come. And I don't blame them, and I don't encourage them to come, because I know that it's scary. I know it's hard to come into these meetings. This one's pretty peaceful. Thank you very much. It was till a moment ago. So thank you very much. I want to tell you, there's been, people are talking about hate. Myself and my children experienced a few episodes of hate. In South San Francisco, on Passover, walking with my children, we were accosted. My children were screamed at. It's not the first time. 3 times in the last not too long, 2 of them in the past 3 weeks, me and my children were accosted with hateful comments having to do with the war in Israel, and me and my children, my little kids, were blamed on what was going on in Israel. It's outrageous what's going on, and I want you to recognize there's a lot of anti-Semitism going on, and thank you very much for not getting involved and not bringing this discord into our local community.
Next speaker, please.
Hello. My name is Natalie. It's my first time here, excitingly. My family has lived in San Bruno for decades, and I just recently bought a house, well, 4 years ago now. I want to thank you for allowing these public hearings. It's a lot. It's a lot for you to hear all of it and a lot of people to express their emotions. I walked by these peaceful, family-friendly protests and actually was heckled. And the streets are completely blocked. You can't get past people. You have to go around. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but it's a bit unfortunate. The whole situation feels a bit like bullying. In fact, you can hear some heckling throughout this hearing as well. There's a lot of anti-Semitism, different derogatory terms used. I've even seen swastikas. And even the language that you heard here today used by individuals is challenging and erroneous and misinformed. And you even hear heckling here. People are scared to come because they don't want to have to put up with it. And it's a bit unfortunate that you don't get to hear all the voices, but the loudest, sort of most uncomfortable voices of bullying. I wish that we can come together, educate, advocate, and really fight against this bigotry and hatred. Some of what you heard here, and some directed directly at you, which was a little bit shocking. So I'm sorry for that on everyone's behalf. And that means it's for Jews and Arabs and everyone else. I think we do have an opportunity to come together and get past this. But ultimately, I do want to thank you for focusing on local issues. We heard a lot of those here. We need to continue to focus on our schools, on our parks, etc. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Council. First, I want to commend the Council on your courage to not agendize a one-sided, divisive ceasefire resolution while at the cost of standing up to some very loud masked individuals that have called you some very inappropriate names. That takes a lot of courage. This is especially relevant with the recent corrections in the casualty count in Gaza, as the UN has exposed Hamas's lies. This is the scariest time to be Jewish in my lifetime. I have a daughter in high school. She's got good grades. She was planning to apply to UCLA. How can she, when masked protesters are physically preventing Jewish students from attending class while the police are being told by the school to not get involved? Until some Jews asked the encampment to leave, then the police were called in to get the Jews. She also wanted to apply to Stanford, down the street. But this Sunday, there was a counter-protest to an anti-terror rally. And my daughter asked me, what is a counter-protest to anti-terror? Is it a pro-terror rally? I also want to correct another speaker who talked about Jewish Voice for Peace. It is an organization that does not represent most Jewish people, and frankly, many of the members are not Jewish, but just say they are and wear the t-shirts. Please continue to make San Bruno safe and inclusive to all. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks. Next speaker, please.
Last three speakers are Hiba Free, Rami L., and Amber.
Oh, my name said Hiba Free Palestine, by the way, not Hiba Free. I'm unclear what some of these last speakers were asking for. I'm here asking you to call out Islamophobia. On the first night of Ramadan, you guys were perpetuating Islamophobic tropes by having our community on the first day of Ramadan eat outside in the cold and pray outside, and you guys barely even addressed it. And when you remain silent when Islamophobia and racism is projected in your communities, you are allowing it to recur. I was a part of a group of people, sorry, I'm really pissed off that I have to keep coming here to display my trauma for you guys. I was a part of peaceful protesters in South City who got assaulted, physically assaulted. The guy elbowed me in the face, and he got a felony charge for criminal threats. He was screaming, "Bomb, bomb, Palestine," and he got 2 misdemeanors, a battery and something like preventing free speech. Those are the people you allow in our community when you don't acknowledge Islamophobia or anti-Palestinian or anti-Arab hate speech. I got elbowed in the face by this man. He was pushing a lot of us and he spit on us. Do you allow that behavior in your community? I don't know about some of the claims that were made before me, but my person actually got charged with these crimes. How does that make you feel? Do I have to bleach my skin for you to care? Do I need to be blonde? Like, what is it? Why do you not care about Arabs or Palestinians? Do you not hear the quivering in our voices? We're sick of showing up and telling you that we're hurt. The bare minimum you could do is acknowledge our pain, like besides a ceasefire resolution. Why are you not acknowledging our pain? You had a community member in San Bruno get physically assaulted again 2 weeks ago. Again, at a rally, before anyone else showed up, he was just setting up Palestinian flags. Where is his crime? We have a First Amendment right to peaceful protest.
Thank you for your remarks. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, City Council. 2 weeks ago, a San Bruno resident was assaulted and pushed into oncoming traffic. As he attacked this resident, he called him, and I quote, "a fucking Arab and a terrorist." Hate speech, physical assault, and the man walked away totally free. We're not talking about foreign affairs. We're talking solely on a domestic basis. This is just local to the city of San Bruno. What do you plan on doing to help bring this to justice? What is your stance when a crime like this happens in our city? How much do you want to lean on saying San Bruno is the city with a heart if we only show love selectively? I welcome you to ask what would happen if the assailant was an Arab. How would that be covered, and how swiftly would justice be attained? Please stop neglecting your Arab and Muslim community, and please bring this person to justice. And on the topic of the rallies that happened on Thursday, I've attended those rallies. I haven't seen any heckling, and I've definitely never seen any swastikas. And you've all been invited to those. I invite you all still. Come and attend them. See how everybody conducts themselves. And tell me if you see any ounce of misconduct or hate coming from that community. I won't say anything on that part. Like, you make the judgment. Everybody's welcome to attend. As long as you're respectful and don't try to instigate any violence against people, everybody's fine. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speakers, please.
I'm also here to ask the city, I'll just hold it, to denounce Islamophobia, what has been happening to our community members, and our students in your guys' school has been atrocious. But first, I'll tell you how I always attend the rallies as well, and they're always peaceful, and you guys can run the footage because the footage is the truth. You can listen to everybody, but if you watch footage, you'll see that there's been nothing but peace and just family members and 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, like kids chanting and hanging out and playing bubbles. The most atrocious thing that's happened is our kids have like accidentally tripped on the sidewalk that's cracked that the city hasn't fixed, but that's not on them, and that there's nothing that's happened there. Outside of that, our students in your schools every day are experiencing Islamophobia, even students who aren't Muslim. But for students who are Muslim and wear the hijab, which is a head covering, they've been experiencing it at extreme rates. I've had students be called suicide bombers, terrorists, told they're responsible for 9/11. I literally had my 6th grade student, another kid, literally told him, you and your family are responsible for 9/11. Yet him and his family have no idea what 9/11 is. He literally had to go, at least he himself went and researched and was like, Miss Amber, I researched it because they told me it was my fault. Imagine you as a kid or your family researching something, told you're responsible for an atrocity that has nothing to do with you because cities aren't passing resolutions. Cities aren't doing anything. We had Arab American History Month. What are people doing to raise awareness around who Arab people are? How Islam's a religion of peace? No one's doing anything. And I feel like it's just really important that you guys listen to everybody who represents your community. Especially our students. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speakers, please.
I have no other speakers.
Okay, we have no other speakers. All right, I'm going to ask that we just take about a 5-minute recess. All right, we're back from recess. Everybody can find their seats, please. Thank you. Appreciate all the speakers and comments. So first and foremost, there are many speakers that spoke in regards to the incident that happened Thursday in front of City Hall during the Thursday gathering. And first and foremost, no one, anyone, has a right to attack anyone, period. But also, other things were said too, so I'm going to ask our Chief Johansson, if you could just update, though I understand you can't really speak about the case.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am Ryan Johansson, your Chief of Police here in San Bruno. I cannot comment on, obviously, the specifics of the case as it sits with the District Attorney's Office, nor would it be appropriate to do so in this venue. But there were some things suggested that I think that the people in San Bruno deserve to have some clarification on. Any suggestion that there was no action taken by the police department or that there was an indifference to what occurred that day in El Camino by the police department is completely inaccurate. While I was not there, I do have the benefit of reviewing every single body-worn camera from that incident, which was on for the entirety of the duration for which police were on scene, included interviews with both sides of this dispute, and also included interviews with potential witnesses. I can totally appreciate that if I were with the group that was out there that was attacked in this case, I would feel that no action was taken because the fact is that no one went away in handcuffs. And I think that that was the expectation. And quite honestly, in my initial review of the case, that was my expectation as well. However, in reviewing the witness statements and taking a look at the officers' actions, I actually believe they made the appropriate decision to take an extremely thorough report. It was unequivocally and is continuing to be investigated as a potential hate crime, and to submit that report to the legal experts at the District Attorney's Office for charges as they see appropriate. And that is exactly the action that the police department has taken in this case.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. With that, we're going to move on to announcements and presentations. As you know, we have quite a few proclamations. So what I'm going to try to do is, I'm not going to read every whereas. We have a lot of folks that are here to accept, and I think we'd rather hear from them than myself. And they probably can assist in bringing more information forward. So the first one that we have is recognizing May 19th to the 25th as National Public Works Week. And we are going to have Mr. Lee come forward. And whereas the year 2024 marks the 64th Annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Rico E. Medina, Mayor of the City of San Bruno, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th to the 25th, 2024, as National Public Works Week. Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. Matt Lee, Public Works Director. I gladly accept the proclamation, but what I really wanted to kind of talk about is something new that we're going to be trying to do this year for Public Works Week. We have a program called Thank a Public Works Employee. And so if there's residents that are out there, starting next week, if you go up to a Public Works employee and you thank them, you will be handed a free tote bag and or a Public Works sticker. And so we would love to kind of show our civic pride in the work that we do. Like we stated many, many times before, The Public Works Department is the fabric of our community in the fact that they maintain the infrastructure that keeps us running, that we oftentimes don't think about. And so if you keep your eyes peeled during Public Works Week on Cable Channel 1 or on our social media platforms, there'll be an opportunity for for the community to win a San Bruno t-shirt, the I Dig San Bruno. And so I just wanted to kind of put that out there to make sure the community is aware, and we will be having a lot more interactions with the community through our media platforms. Thank you very much.
Next, we're going to move on to item B, proclaiming and recognizing May 2024 as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Whereas during Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, the City of San Bruno recognizes the contributions and the vibrant cultures and the rich heritage of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders, known as AA and NHPI. And whereas this year's theme is Advancing Leaders Through Collaboration, which builds on a leadership advancement theme series that begins. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Rico Medina, Mayor of the City of San Bruno, do hereby recognize the challenges faced by the AA and NHPI community and their vital contributions to the American story, and do hereby designate the month of May as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. I'm going to move on to item C, recognizing May 2024 as Jewish American Heritage Month. And Jason is going to, if you could step forward to the podium, it would be appreciated. Whereas on April 20th, 2006, the federal government proclaimed May as Jewish American Heritage Month, stating, as a nation of immigrants, the United States is better and stronger because of Jewish people from all over the world have chosen to become American citizens, end quote. And since then, proclamations in support of the Jewish American Heritage Month have been made by presidents of the United States annually. And whereas in recent years, Jewish Americans have increasingly experienced anti-Semitism, including but not limited to physical attacks, vandalism, verbal and physical harassment, and hateful comments posted on social media. And now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Rico E. Medina, Mayor of the City of San Bruno, declare the month of May as Jewish American Heritage Month in appreciation of the achievements and contributions made by members of the Jewish community. Jason. Mike is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank you again for recognizing Jewish American Heritage Month. It means a lot to our community, and we feel the support, and we appreciate that ongoing. So thank you on behalf of all of us.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll be going on to item D, proclaiming and recognizing May 2024 as Mental Health Awareness Month. And we have, yep, come on up. Whereas San Mateo County Board of Supervisors is the first in the country to pass a resolution in January of 2024 declaring loneliness as a public health crisis and pledging to promote social connection in our communities. Given the public health priority, the theme for 2024 Mental Health Month is Heal Through Connection. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Rico E. Medina, Mayor of the City of San Bruno, do hereby proclaim May 2024 as Mental Health Awareness Month in San Bruno. And this is something I think for some of us colleagues up here is very important. And I know that in my time, between COVID, between other elements, it is to try to drop the stigma. It is okay to say you need help. And it is okay to step forward. And it is okay to make mistakes and use poor judgment and better yourself. So with that.
Right, good evening, City Mayor, Council members, City Manager, staff, and residents of San Bruno. I'm Yoko Ng and use the pronoun she, her. I'm a member of the San Mateo County Behavioral Health Commission. The County Behavioral Health Commission is committed to the goals of promoting wellness and recovery, enhancing public awareness and knowledge of mental health and substance use conditions, and eliminating stigma. Thank you to the City of San Bruno for proclaiming 2024 May Mental Health Month. Lime green is the national color for mental health and represents how we want to bring a bright light to an important issue that may be hidden or seen negatively. May Mental Health Month is observed across San Mateo County, California, and the United States, and it is one of the best times of the year when we reduce stigma, connect people to services, and promote wellness for mental health and substance use conditions. In January 2024, the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors was the first in the country to pass a resolution declaring loneliness as a public health crisis and pledging to promote social connection in our communities. Given this public health priority, the theme for 2024 May Mental Health Month is Heal Through Connection, #SMC Against Loneliness. San Mateo County's Mental Health Month will feature a variety of virtual and in-person events, advocacy days, and a communication campaign. Mental Health Month is important to me because recovery is possible through hopes. Lastly, starting today, I invite you to take action on one or more options. 1, use #SMC Against Loneliness to spread the word about Mental Health Month on social media. 2, wear a lime green ribbon. You can wear one physically on your clothing or virtually on your social media profile. This can spark a conversation and sharing about mental health. And lastly, attend a local Mental Health Month event, which I want to bring to your attention that the next upcoming event will be on May 17th, this Friday at 3:30 to 4:30, will be held at Brisbane Library at 163 Visitation Avenue in Brisbane. And that event is Make Your Own Wellness Kit. Personalize your own wellness kit by decorating a pencil pouch and choosing items to help you through, to find one ease throughout the day. And thank you again very much for, thank you so much to the City of San Bruno community for recognizing May Mental Health Month. Thank you.
Thank you, and we also, City Hall will display green lights starting tomorrow now that we've issued the proclamation.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. And then I'll be right with you with your proclamation. And the last proclamation is recognizing May 2024 as Wildfire Awareness Month. Whereas wildfires are a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are in the locations where people are at most significant risk from fire. And whereas all of us have an essential role in protecting ourselves, loved ones, and our community from wildfire, we urge all San Bruno residents to take life-saving steps to stay prepared, including making their homes more fire resistant, creating defensible spaces, and developing a wildfire action plan well ahead of the time. Now is the time to take action and learn more about all aspects of fire safety and preparedness. And for somebody whose mother lived in Paradise and we lost our home, and having to go up to see Paradise, what fires and the ravaging that it causes in a very short time. So with that, Chief.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the Council. My name is Ari DeLay, and I'm your fire chief. I'd like to thank Mayor Medina for the proclamation. It's an honor to accept the proclamation declaring Wildfire Awareness Month here in the city of San Bruno on behalf of the San Bruno Fire Department. Wildfires are a growing concern not just here in San Bruno, but throughout California and beyond. This proclamation is a testament to our collective commitment to increasing our awareness, preparation, and resilience against wildfire here in San Bruno. Our community safety is our top priority within the fire department and the city, and this proclamation reminds us the importance of being vigilant, informed and prepared during Wildfire and Awareness Month. It'll prepare us for the opportunity to educate and engage our residents on fire prevention strategies and emergency preparedness and the steps we can take to reduce the risk of wildfires here in San Bruno. I wanted to acknowledge the hard work and the dedication of our firefighters and specifically our prevention staff who work tirelessly to protect our community. Their bravery and is unmatched, and they deserve our deepest gratitude. I also encourage all of our residents to join in the activities and programs that we'll be organizing through the remainder of the month. Their involvement is crucial in building a fire-resilient community here in San Bruno. We can make a significant difference and ensure the safety and well-being of San Bruno. Whether it's our citywide wildfire mitigation program, our work in Crestmore Canyon, our partnership with the California Conservation Corps, and our partnership with the San Mateo County Fire Safe Council, these programs collectively help build a stronger, more resilient community in relations to wildfire. And again, just thank you, Mayor Medina, for the proclamation and your continued support for Wildfire Awareness Month.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you to all of those here this evening and the proclamations. Now we'll take under presentations and announcements, any public comments, please.
Yes, we have Anne Frank and Justin.
Hi. So this is going to be about May is Mental Health Month. As someone in the field of mental health, I want to shine a light on the profound and lasting effects of trauma caused by anti-Semitism. The Jewish people are survivors of intergenerational trauma, attempted genocides, and constant displacement. Trauma is ingrained in our blood, but it's also what makes us stronger and more resilient as a people. Some of our parents are direct descendants of Holocaust survivors. For those that didn't return to our indigenous land of Israel, they encountered the same treatment as Zionist Jews that Zionist Jews are getting today. Remember, 89% of Jews consider themselves Zionists. So let's be clear. Every time someone is singling out Zionists as some evil entity, white settler, occupying capitalist colonizers, that is blatant anti-Semitism. Anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. This needs to be called out over and over again. At these peaceful protests here in cities in the Bay Area, you see banners such as "Glory to the Martyrs," which is glorifying suicide bombing. And from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. The House just passed a bill stating that this was anti-Semitic speech. It calls for the genocide of the Israeli people, to wipe out the Jewish Israeli people of Israel. Just as the Nazis wrote the playbook for the far right, the communists wrote the playbook for the progressive left. Organizations such as CARE seem to be studying this playbook carefully, taking notes, and indoctrinating a new generation of anti-Semites veiled under a progressive cloak. So what can we do? We must stand together against anti-Semitism, confronting hatred wherever it arises its ugly head, and fostering environments of acceptance, empathy, respect, and connection. The Jewish community asks you to stand with us against anti-Semitism. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks. Next speaker, please.
Hello again, Council. I wanted to congratulate you on your proclamations for National Public Works Week, Asian American, Native, Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, Jewish American Heritage Month, and Mental Health Month. It's really important to recognize all these things, and it's good to see that the Council is taking efforts to do so. But on the note of Asian American, Native, Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Month, just a bit of history. Did you know that Chinese Americans were initially brought here to replace Black Americans as slaves? It's not common knowledge, but it's true. There are plenty of newspaper clippings, as well as publicly available comments by southern slave-owning states and the free states about how Chinese Americans would be cheaper than Black Americans because we were smaller and easier to feed and more resilient. We were also brought to Hawaii, Japanese Americans more specifically, to be slaves for sugar plantations. I bring this up because San Bruno still has the mission bell as its symbol. The missions, which I hope many of you know, or perhaps not, were tools of enslavement of the indigenous Ohlone people here, who were wiped out by American settlers come here because they felt it was their supposed promised land. They felt that the indigenous people of the Americas were savages, were not worthy or intelligent, and did not have complex and intricate economies, which couldn't be farther from the truth. Trade routes as far as Ontario, Canada, to the Horn of Argentina. Ooh, my geography is horrible. There are artifacts all the way from Ontario down to Argentina. El Camino itself is actually an Ohlone trade route. Of course, the Spanish colonizers erased that too, calling it the road. How inspiring. It wasn't just a road, it was the Ohlone way of life. And I say this because the city, despite its genuinely good efforts to recognize all these important things, still has not called for a ceasefire. All the while, we put on this face and genuine desire, I do think it's a genuine desire to see that our city and our society recognizes important people and important things in our society. We continue to support settler colonialism abroad. Ironically, or perhaps fittingly, it's this very same foundation which built this country. Literally decades, nearly 2 centuries of genocide, slavery, bigotry. And do you know what the white settlers said of the Native Americans? That we should live in peace. That they should just accept us. And you know, some Native Americans did accept it. Plenty of Iroquois tribes in the South became slavers, and they traded black people and their own indigenous brothers and sisters. They joined the colonies. But does it make it right? I would certainly hope not. I just thought I'd educate you. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks.
I have no other speaker cards.
Okay, we're going to move on to consent calendar. All items are considered routine or implemented in an earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested. There will be one single public comment period for all these items in this section unless a council member requests to pull an item for a separate vote. We have items 6A through 6I. Is there anyone for a separate vote on any item? Seeing none, are there any items for comment or questions? Mr. Medina.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, item I as in igloo.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, let's go to I. And that is consider adoption of a resolution contingent upon approval and issuance of a required public entertainment event permit, waive fees for city services associated with fundraising event hosted by the San Bruno Lions Club following the 2024 Posy Parade, and authorizing the transfer of an amount not to exceed $12,681 from the general fund reserves as an appropriation for these fees. Councilmember Medina.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify for full disclosure, I did speak with our city attorney, and I am a San Bruno Lion. I'm a proud member of that club, and I am allowed to vote on this matter because there is no financial gain for myself. So I just wanted to make it absolutely clear about this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any public speakers for consent?
I have no speaker cards.
I'm going to call up. It was kind of like if it got commented on, then we were going to have Mr. Seymour. And I said, well, just we can do it in the moment.
I was mistaken. I do have speaker cards. I got confused with the numbers.
Okay.
So let me call them up. Matt Jones, Nicole Hahn, and Justin.
And then Mr. Seymour after that, please.
Hello. I have a couple different comments on the items proposed on consent. First is 6F. I just wanted to acknowledge that I wanted to commend the city for taking action to honor Pride Month and for flying the flag. And I'm just hoping that, and I don't know what version you flew last year, but I know that there's different cities that are starting to fly the intersectional version. So if you can please, if you don't have it already, it'd be great to honor intersectionality. So that's for item F. For item G, you're probably going to hear from me a couple times on this one because this one was my baby when I worked for the city.
I had some questions about it. One of the items in the staff report is about the $1,500 that's being appropriated to this project from the Southline Settlement Funds. I just didn't have a lot of information on that item. If staff would be able to provide some more information of where the funds came from, how the city's planning on using those funds for different types of projects, what they can be used for, that would be great. Also, just acknowledging the project timeline. It wasn't included in the staff report, but I secured funding for this project through the grants some of the grants that were received going back to 2016. So I just want to, 2017. So I just want to acknowledge that we're at 7 years for this project now. And I'm just glad it's moving forward, even though the cost is, I think, doubled since when we first were issued the grant funding for the project. I also just wanted to ask, in terms of when we do, because I see it's broken up into segment 1, segment 2, just wanted to ask about possible design options for that. And if it's possible, since we can't get the lane removal, it sounds like, for part of that project on the northbound section, if it's possible that we'd be able to use the strip that's next to Huntington. I don't know if the city has right-of-way there or if it's another jurisdiction, but biking there the other day, it's really dangerous to bike down Huntington. If it's possible to utilize that parcel and redesign it to try to accommodate more space for both pedestrians and cyclists, I think that'd be preferable to some of the options that were outlined in the staff report, which would include, I think, modifying part of the sidewalk. So anyways, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hello. As a lifelong resident of District 2, I strongly support the approval of the Huntington Bike and Pedestrian Improvements Project. Currently, the corridor lacks pedestrian and bike-friendly infrastructure. It's actually pretty dangerous, and with high traffic speeds, not enough lighting, missing crosswalks, it lacks bike facilities. By investing in initiatives like this, we demonstrate our commitment to constructing a sustainable, eco-friendly city, reducing emissions, and enhancing public health. By making it easier for residents to be active, we address parking issues and traffic congestion while encouraging physical activity, benefiting both individuals and the environment. Establishing the city's first north to south bike route on the east side will further enhance these benefits by providing accessible and safe cycling options, fostering social interaction, and encouraging physical activity. Supporting this project will not only encourage a healthier lifestyle, but also nurture a vibrant and fulfilling community. And I'm also looking forward to the Posy Parade, especially the music event. It is very nostalgic of my childhood. This will be the 82nd year, so thank you for making that happen, continuing to make it happen.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hello again, Council. I just want to congratulate you, or to praise you guys for displaying the LGBTQ Progress Pride flag. It's really important we recognize people of all gender identities and sexualities. Too often, they either go unnoticed or actively attacked. As in other states, trans people are seeing their rights taken away. It's good to see that here in San Mateo County, and specifically in San Bruno, we don't stand for that sort of fascism and authoritarianism, even though we may stand for other forms of it. I also want to praise the city and for its Huntington bicycle and pedestrian improvement projects. As was spoken earlier by the previous commenter, having more bike lanes and more bike projects promotes a healthier community that is more interconnected, and it's also safer. This will also result in less emissions and a place where people can more safely and freely travel around without necessarily needing a car. I don't drive, so it'd be great for me. And lastly, on the Posy Parade, I go every single year, so I'm really glad that it's happening again. It's a great tradition, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hello, Mayor Medina and City Council. My name is Stephen Seymour, and I'm speaking to you as the president of the Lions Club. who proudly, the club has proudly sponsored the Posy Parade for the last 82 years with the help of the city. I'd like to talk to you about a few reasons why I think it's important that we pass this on consent today. Like I mentioned, this is the 82nd year. This involves the whole community. It involves the children of the whole community, even those sitting in this room. And it's a time when we can all come together and put aside our differences and be one city. It involves the schools, the sports teams, the scouts, service clubs. And this year, for the community portion of it, we'll proudly showcase 3 local bands. Everybody knows about Vibo, the music store that's been on San Mateo Avenue for such a long time. Well, Victor, the owner of it, has a band called Victor and the Callers, and he'll be one of the bands up on the stage. He's also going to bring out one of the high school bands that practices there. And then I think most of you may know Carlos Cookie Gonzalez, Mission District salsa kind of band, will be the headliner band. So it'll be some good dancing music, and we'll put this on the pavement behind West Coast Cafe with your approval tonight. We're going to involve the businesses. I was speaking with some of the restaurants today about feeding, and some of them said that they'd like to pass down a discount that day to encourage people that come to the parade and to the music event to go and buy their food there, and we'll have tables set up so that they can eat and they can watch the band activities. We've also talked with Bay Area Entrepreneurial Center, where we'll be able to have a pop-up during the time when the band's there, the earlier portion of the band. So this will allow us to do the parade and then have an event for the community afterwards. Party for Less, we'll be able to supply the chairs and the tables. And we're asking for donors to help us with this. As you see, there's a $12,000 assigned, price tag assigned for the security. The event will cost us roughly about 10 grand to put on, and the club has set aside some of that. But just over the last couple of days, I've had $7,500 come in from donors. So I believe, while this is on consent, I've viewed this parade as a City and Lions event, and I think most have for the 82 years it's gone on. I know in the earlier years it wasn't the Lions, but there's always been 2 parties involved. And if we make over and above the 10,000, I think we could kick back to help the city with the 12,000 that you would waive tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Is there any other speakers?
No other speakers.
Okay, and I know Mr. Jones had a lot of questions, and I don't know if staff can maybe connect on the project with some of those. Okay, good. Any comments from colleagues? Any action?
Through the chair, I'll make a motion to approve the items on consent.
Second.
Motion Hamilton, second Marty Medina to approve consent. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Now we'll move on to item 7, public hearings. Which, just as a heads up, there is one public hearing, and then when we go into conduct of business, just as a reminder that item A, the fireworks item, is being pulled and tentatively scheduled for the next regular meeting.
Item 7A, hold public hearing and consider adoption of a resolution approving an architectural review permit and conditional use permit to establish and operate a cannabis retail store at 120 to 124 El Camino Real, and adoption of a resolution authorizing the installation of a loading zone located in front of 120 El Camino Real.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. This has been a project that has had a long history with the city, and this council has heard this item several times through its iterations. And really, we're here at the final point where the actual application for the Embark retail establishment for the sale of cannabis in our community is finally in front of the council. It's an important day for us, and I'd like to introduce Peter Gilly, the Community Development Director, and he will introduce the staff to provide you the full presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I'd like to present Eliseo Amaya, one of our assistant planners who's going to present the application.
Honorable Mayor and council members, thank you. And let's get started with the agenda for this presentation. Firstly, I will introduce you to the objective of this item. Then we'll go into background information, which will cover cannabis regulations and its development over time. Then I will introduce the cannabis application that was submitted to the city, going on to tonight's recommended action, and we'll open the floor for questions. I also want to let you know that the applicant has prepared a presentation to introduce themselves and their operations. As was mentioned, the objective is to hold a public hearing to consider adoption of the following, which is a resolution approving the cannabis retail store at 120-124 El Camino Real and authorizing a loading zone located in front of the building. So to cover the background, I wanted to touch on a fiscal year goal. Every year, the San Bruno City Council gathers to review the city's priority focus areas and strategic initiatives designed to advance each of these areas. For the 2023-2024 fiscal year, City Council identified Strategic Initiative 9.1 as a key effort to enhance city revenues. This initiative, centered on cannabis regulations and permitting, was aimed at facilitating the opening of the application process and bringing a cannabis operator permit applications before the council for evaluation. Tonight's meeting marks a significant milestone in this initiative, bringing us one step closer to achieving this focus of ensuring fiscal stability and enhancing economic vitality. Now I would like to introduce the council to the commercial cannabis regulations and its development over time. On October 21st of 2022, the City Council took a significant step in adopting cannabis ordinances, amending the municipal code to allow for certain cannabis operations. Initially, the permitted maximum was 4 cannabis operators, 3 for retail operators, and 1 for distribution. Concurrently, the City Council also established the application procedures and guidelines for the CCOP. These guidelines outline a comprehensive 5-phase process, which we will dive into shortly. Moving forward to early 2023, City Council proposed changes to the cannabis regulations and instructed staff to prepare some amendments. On April 11th of 2023, the City Council passed an ordinance amending the municipal code, reducing the maximum permitted cannabis operators from 4 to 2, that being 1 retail operator and 2 distribution operators. Additionally, the amendment removed the downtown area as an allowable retail location. As of now, cannabis retail operators are restricted to the transit corridor, while distribution operators are confined in the industrial area north of I-380. These are the 5 phases outlined in the application procedure and guidelines for the CCOP. Let's walk through the application timeline and summarize each phase. So from May 15th to June 30th of 2023, the CCOP application was open, resulting in the submission of 3 retail applications. No distribution applications were received. In phase 1, the eligibility of each application was determined, with those meeting the minimum requirements proceeding to phase 2. And phase 2 involved evaluating the completeness of each application. In phase 3, applications underwent assessment by the community development, fire, and police departments, with each application receiving a pass status to proceed to phase 4. Phase 4 occurred on August 22nd, 2023. During this public hearing, the City Council reviewed and considered the 3 applications, ultimately selecting Embark as the candidate for cannabis retail. Tonight's agenda represents Phase 5 with two critical parts. Part 1 of Phase 5 involves Planning Commission, followed by City Council reviewing and considering approval of the applicant's conditional use permit. These public hearings aim to determine whether the proposed project aligns with all necessary zoning and land use requirements. On April 16th of this year, the Planning Commission held a public hearing to consider the architectural review permit and conditional use permit application, voting to recommend that the City Council approve both permits. If the CUP is approved, we move to Part 2 of Phase 5, where the city manager may grant the CCOP license to the retailer. So now we will look at Embark's proposed application. The applicant, under the business name of Embark, seeks to establish and operate a cannabis retail store on the corner of El Camino Real and San Marco Avenue. Embark applied to operate its retail storefront from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day, including customer delivery operation during these hours. Third-party vehicles will handle online order deliveries to its customers. The proposed product categories that will be sold at this location include wax, vapes, flower, edibles, pre-rolls, and other cannabis products. If the applicant wishes to extend its hours of operation, for example, until 10 p.m., such modification is permitted under state law. A condition of approval facilitates this change administratively, contingent upon the approval of the Community Development Director. So this here is a summary of their improvements. If approved, Embark plans to renovate the vacant 2,460 square foot building by conducting both interior and exterior improvements. It's important to note that no additional floor area will be added. The proposed business also plans to make improvements to the parking lot and to the public right-of-way along El Camino Real frontage. Let's summarize some of the improvements. In pink indicates the proposed interior and exterior improvements. This involves a reconfiguration of the floor plan to optimize space for staff and sales area. It will also enhance the building facade to make it more visually appealing. In purple, we see the driveway improvements. So this involves shortening the driveway, new sidewalk, a new on-street parking space along El Camino, and a loading zone highlighted in yellow on El Camino Real for one delivery van. In the brownish color, we see the parking lot improvements. The plan includes the addition of 4 parking spaces, one of which will be ADA compliant, installation of bike racks, incorporation of planter boxes, and the construction of a trash enclosure. And the product deliveries are scheduled between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. on weekdays. Deliveries will be strategically timed during off-peak customer hours and scheduled in hourly increments to minimize traffic congestion at the site. These deliveries will be facilitated in the proposed loading zone on El Camino. In conjunction to the conditional use permit application, Embark has submitted a traffic management plan outlining how they will manage their customer flow with the 4 parking spaces proposed. Additionally, Embark has submitted a conceptual security plan which has undergone review by the police department. However, a final security plan, business operation plan, and fire safety and hazardous material plan must be submitted and approved by the city before building permit issuance. So this outlines their proposed enhancements and their commitment to security and operational efficiency. An architectural review permit is included for the project's exterior building and site upgrades. Staff and the Planning Commission finds that the proposed enhancements aim to modernize the building facade as part of a broader effort to revitalize the El Camino Real corridor. Restoration plans entail sanding the original brick exterior to expose the brick veneer, painting the garage door black, installing aluminum framed windows and storefronts. Additionally, the incorporation of large planters will not only enhance the security, but also contribute to an aesthetic appeal. The other elevations will receive similar upgrades, such as Embark signage and enhanced lighting. Staff and the Planning Commission finds that the proposed improvements foster a safe and welcoming environment, encouraging increased pedestrian activity while adding a visual interest to the built environment. We also find that it aligns with the area's character, will pose minimal visual impact, and is consistent with the zoning district it's located in. So for next step, as was previously mentioned, we've reached phase 5 of this 5-phase process, where the City Council will take the final action on the conditional use permit. If approved, the city manager will then proceed to issue the applicant the CCOP license. Following CCOP issuance, the applicant will submit construction plans for its building permit, which will undergo the standard plan check review. Anticipated permit issuance is expected in summer of 2024. Once the permit is granted, the applicant will initiate construction for the proposed interior, exterior, and site improvements. Construction will undergo standard inspection with all relevant departments until the city is prepared to issue the certificate of occupancy. Afterwards, Embark will commence retail and delivery operation with potential for operation to commence by the end of 2024. For those concerned with whether Embark fulfills its commitment and does not cause issues, the ordinance requires an annual renewal of the CCOP from the date that the license was issued. If Embark is looking to renew, they must file a renewal application at least 60 days before the permit expires. Ultimately, the city manager holds the authority to decide on the renewal permits with the power to impose additional conditions deemed necessary for compliance with the state, local laws, or for the sake of public health and safety. Any violation to state and local laws, rules, standards, or conditions of approval related to the cannabis operation could lead to the revocation of Embark's permits. Moreover, if the state finds that Embark violates its rules, regulations, or if there's neglect to pay the city tax and fees, the renewal could be rejected. So it's crucial for Embark to adhere to the regulations and conditions of approval to maintain its permit. This project is exempt from SEQA review since it's an existing facility that will undergo minor alterations. It's a private structure that does not expand its current or previous use, so such alterations are exempt from further environmental review. As for revenue projections, on February 28th of 2023, Council increased the tax rate to 6%. Embark's original application, reviewed by the Council on August of 2023, projected that their operation would result in $1.4 million in cannabis tax revenue for the first full year of operation. The fiscal year 2024-2025 budget projects $700,000 in revenue from Embark's operation, which is 50% of Embark's projected first year of cannabis tax revenue. This projection is based on the assumption that Embark will open at the midpoint of the fiscal year. The city would also get a share of sales tax, which is composed of the 0.95% sales tax and 0.5% transaction and use tax, which was adopted with Measure G. Lastly, Embark will designate an additional 1% of gross receipts to its community investment fund for community benefits. This fund will be managed by Embark's Community Advisory Board. And I will conclude with tonight's recommended action. So receive the applicant's presentation. Embark has prepared a presentation to introduce themselves, expand on the business operation and their projected revenue. Afterwards, hold a public hearing and consider adoption of both resolutions, which is to establish the cannabis retail store and authorize the installation of the loading zone. And that is it for my presentation.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Do you want questions, or would you like us to receive the applicant's presentation?
Applicant presentation.
Okay. Please, if you could come forward.
All right, good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. It's nice to see you again. It feels like it's been forever since we've seen you, so in deference to your time, since I know it's getting late, we will run through our presentation briefly. It's just intended to reintroduce some of the key components of the proposal, which I'm sure you recall from our last meeting.
And our clicker tonight is going to be 2 taps, right?
Thank you. So as a reminder, I'm Lauren Carpenter. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Embark. With me is Dustin Moore, my husband and co-founder, and Bobby Petrini, who's also an owner. So we are Embark San Bruno. Okay, now. So we currently operate in 15 California communities statewide, but particularly in nearby communities, including Redwood City and Alameda. We've consistently been first to market in the communities we serve. So I think that's important just because it demonstrates our commitment to actually executing on the promises that we make, both to you and to the community at large. Importantly, we've opened 5 new stores just since January 1st of this year. I think that's important because certainly there's been a lot of conversation in California about how the cannabis industry is doing, and we are committed to continuing to execute fastidiously. Last year, we paid more than $15 million in taxes and $10 million in wages. So we really intend to serve as a partner for the lifetime of our businesses to each of the communities we serve. And for those reasons, we believe we're proven and profitable, which is important because it ensures staying power. Our team is diverse and varied, but brings a lot of relevant experience to this endeavor. As I detailed last time, our team brings more than a decade of cannabis regulatory experience. So I know LSA touched on compliance. We bring more than a decade of compliance experience, and obviously, including in our 15 storefronts, none of which have had state or local violations. Our retail team, we're very fortunate, is led by the former CEO of The Gap. Last time during our presentation, we talked about how our business integrates technology, how we utilize an operational model that prioritizes buy online, pick up in store, or BOPIS, and those are the types of things that his expertise and decades of traditional retail leadership has brought to both our operations and to our proposal. And finally, this is testing me without glasses, but finally, our security is overseen by a former law enforcement officer, so he builds out all of our security programs, processes, and infrastructure, and we really bring him to the table on the forefront of each project to vet potential locations and help us identify an appropriate site, including crime prevention through environmental design. So we're fortunate to have his expertise. He actually works with police departments in California and has for a number of years to help them develop the municipal ordinances and regulations as it relates to cannabis security and safety. So we benefit from that expertise in informing the plans that we have been and will continue to work with your police department on should we be successful tonight. Speaking of our team, I'm very proud of our retail team. We are a proud partner of the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, and it is through that partnership that we are a significant and meaningful employer in the communities we serve. We have approximately 400 employees today and growing, and it's through, again, our partnership with UFCW that we have a fully unionized employees statewide. We are committed to our employees' growth and maturation for the lifetime of our business, not just within the 4 walls of our store, but also statewide. And so we're also a proud partner of the UFCW in working on their apprenticeship task force to be working to create standards for cannabis workers across the state. Okay, I'll keep going. Our location, as you know, and thank you, LSAO, for presenting, is 120 to 124 El Camino Real. It's a fully compliant location per your city ordinance and code. We're fortunate that it's a standalone building. I always say that allows us to ensure that it looks like a palace, so investing heavily in the aesthetics, but really to function as a fortress. And because it's a standalone building, it affords us the ability to control all 4 walls of the building in a way that affords us additional security precautions and measures. We are approximately 100 feet from the nearest bus stop to ensure accessibility for those using public transit. We've included bike parking in coordination with staff. And I think importantly, this project represents the rehabilitation of an approximately 5-year vacant building into something that we hope the community from an aesthetic perspective will be really proud of. This is just intended to show you we have a history of redevelopment, which is my nice way of saying taking vacant or otherwise underutilized buildings and really investing into their reimagination into a cannabis retail space that the community feels can integrate sensitively and mindfully into the neighborhood. These are just a few examples of before and afters of other dispensaries we operate in California. Briefly touching on neighborhood compatibility, because of the fact that we operate 15 stores statewide, we're fortunate to have really learned lessons from each of those operations that continue to refine our neighborhood compatibility and integration plans. There are way too many components to be able to touch on them briefly tonight, but just a few to call out is obviously with the addition of this business will come 24/7 additional security infrastructure, both for our site, but also for those in the immediate vicinity. So this is on-site patrolling through our on-site security guards and also through off-site live monitoring, including a direct feed into the police department to ensure total visibility into our operations at all times. It also includes the installation of dozens of security cameras, ensuring that all transactions per state law are captured in a compliant manner. We've worked collaboratively with staff, and again, very grateful to staff who's been fantastic to work with on this project, really to try and be super responsive to opportunities to continue to invest in repairs and investments into the interior and exterior of the site and really to the parcel. We've touched on, facade upgrades, landscaping, and the like, really again intended to show and demonstrate our investment into this building and into the business. As part of the Good Neighbor policy, our security officers will also canvass within the immediate vicinity of the area, which is often found to be a benefit to neighboring businesses just because of the additional security and partnership that can provide. And finally, as I mentioned, we include a voluntary Good Neighbor policy as part of our operations in each community we serve. That includes regular beautification and we call it our street team that engages in beautification, not just of our parcel, but also of the immediate vicinity, really to ensure that we're continuing to invest in being a positive force in the neighborhood. And then also we afford our employees ongoing paid volunteerism. And so that's intended to also deepen that connection, both within the neighborhood and the community at large. Bobby and our team knocked on many a door during the front end of this process and spoke with many of our neighbors who recognized the opportunity that this represented for partnership with our business, but also again for increased investment in the area, investment in security, and welcomed the opportunity for us to be collaborative neighbors should we be fortunate to move forward tonight. We talked a lot last time about community benefits, so I figured I would just briefly remind you of our proposal, and it's really centered on a multi-pronged thesis, but the thesis is simple. We coalesce local residents and community leaders and stakeholders into a volunteer community advisory board. We empower that board to meet with us quarterly to ensure transparency of our operations and a true feedback loop with the community, but also empower them with an additional 1% of gross receipts for the lifetime of the business, where this group gets to allocate those resources to opportunities and needs within the community as they come up. We've found this to be a very effective mechanism of ongoing community benefit and support in the communities we serve, as it allows us to be responsive to community need very quickly. It's a group that has their fingers and toes in the community and is therefore very aware of community need, which allows us to be responsive in near real time. As I also mentioned, we enhance that with skin in the game from our team, us included, so we provide all employees with up to 40 hours of paid volunteerism per year. Again, really just intended to deepen that connection with the community that we call home. And finally, we undertake a listening tour for months or sometimes years on the front end of a process because we recognize that this is new, This is a new industry that's coming to the community, and so it would be only fair for there to be questions and comments and concerns. And consistently, the thing we heard during this listening tour was, if our community is going to allow for retail cannabis sales, what are we going to do? How are we going to educate and protect our children? And so one of the key priorities of our work with community is to partner with youth servicing organizations to deploy an accredited third-party youth drug education and prevention program. And really, by providing grant resources for the staffing and for that curriculum to amplify those efforts to ensure that we're educating and protecting our youth. We're really proud to do that in the communities we serve today, to do it with organizations like the Boys and Girls Club, and we look forward to the opportunity to also deploy that here.
And then just to jump in and kind of pick up off where LSAO left off related to the financial projections for the business, I think it was important just to come back and touch on that. So how we arrived at our pro forma and how we arrived at the numbers or the revenue to be generated for the city is based on some pretty simple math that's borne out across our other 15 operations. So we start by looking at our addressable market. If you look at San Bruno, the 10-mile population is about 1.36 million people. The 5-mile population, which is really our target, is about 195,000 people. And then I would say the unknown, but certainly going to be a benefit based on our experience in Redwood City of having folks visiting us and self-reporting that they found us when they landed by Googling dispensary near me. So that's 47 million people that pass through San Francisco International Airport. We do have a coordinated marketing campaign that we're working on, through our contacts with the airport. So that population has been discounted from this pro forma because we're just unsure what it means. So essentially, at the end of the day, our projections are based on the immediate addressable market, which is the 5-mile radius where there's effectively a cannabis desert and will persist as a cannabis desert for the next couple of years. Even if South City moves forward, it'll be a few years before they actually turn on a dispensary, and the same is true with Belmont with their process. So we believe for the next few years, within this 5-mile population, we would be the only dispensary. So that's 195,000 people. Once you reduce that to take into account only adults over the age of 21, that takes you to about 150,000 people. Of those 150,000 people, about 20% will participate in cannabis purchases, and they'll purchase on an average of about 20 times per year. Some obviously much higher frequency, some less, but that is the blended average across the board. We look at a $70 average basket, which basically at the year one takes us to about $1.5 million in revenue. Looking at your fiscal year, July through June of next year, we anticipate submitting building plans as early as the end of this week, as late as next week, at risk waiting for the permit to be, should we be selected tonight, of course, to be processed, which again would issue the building permit in July. We believe we have, a 2.5-month construction cycle. So if all goes well, we would hope to be open by, call it October, early November. So meaning of that fiscal year, there would still be 7 to 8 months of operations. Usually we see a really big peak right out of the gate when we open. So, we believe that those revenue projections are certainly in line with what our performance would be. I also did a kind of a gradating scale just to give you a sense if we hit our projections at 60%, 75%, or 100%, what that would mean, for the city's revenue. So I think, looking again at about 60% of a year, if we were to be able to open in October and all goes well, we feel confident that those projections can be realized. It's always hard to know until you open your doors who actually shows up. But again, we've done this 15 times now, and this is in line with the projections we've seen at our other stores.
And that's it. So thank you. We hope that was a little bit of a reminder of who we are and a refresher. We're grateful for your initial selection, grateful to staff for all of the work to get here, and hopeful that we are able to move forward this evening.
Thank you very much, all three of you, for being here and for your presentation. This is a public hearing, so we're going to now open to see any comments from folks that are here this evening.
We have 3 speaker cards. Matt J., followed by Stephen Seymour, followed by Julie Lind.
Hi, everyone. Matt, back again. you all probably know by now that I'm a planner, and I've worked on a number of different projects that have involved cannabis retail. And I wanted to just say that I've seen a variety of different approaches from cities, and just acknowledging that it takes a long time to get to this point. It took a lot of different public hearings and conversations and community input, and so just wanted to acknowledge that, because in the public sector, you know, it can take years to try to get one thing done. And so this is the first, this is the community's first. Overall, I'm in support of cannabis as a use in San Bruno. It's going to generate a good amount of revenue for the city. This is the first, and I hope that there's a few more coming down the road. I've also seen cities in different jurisdictions where I've worked on these cannabis permits that overregulate, and by that I mean they will create like a laundry list of things that they want this cannabis permit, you know, to provide through the business. And, you know, we have to remember too that cannabis operators are small businesses too. And so to make sure that we right size that, and I think that the city has. The design looks great for the building. I mean, when I'm looking at these projects, my question is always, is this going to be a net benefit? Is this going to be an increase over what's there currently? And I would say, yes, from a design perspective, they're providing parking. They have signage to limit the duration. I mean, I looked through the report, and I can tell that staff really did their homework, did a really good job across the board, across all departments. So I just wanted to say well done to staff. I know anytime you do something for the first time, it takes extra work. And I hope that this is going to be a good starting point for a future, more robust cannabis permit program in the city. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Yes, Stephen Seymour again. All I can say is, wow. I think I first came to City Council more than 5 years ago, and have talked to each and every one of you on many occasions about the benefits of bringing cannabis to San Bruno. And it's been a long time waiting, but on behalf of myself and my wife, who have been probably the loudest advocates in this city, for cannabis, a cannabis retail store, I can do nothing but thank you all. Thank you. Thank staff for working on this. And thank you for being the store that hopefully will be here soon. The end of 24 can't come too soon. I was listening to their revenue projections, and I know that I've stood here before you and talked to you about neighboring cities that have cannabis stores. And one of the reasons why I thought it was important to bring this to San Bruno is because of the revenue generation. There are many reasons, but that's one of them. And I believe that their revenue, and I think they do too, that their revenue projections are low. I heard them say that they didn't calculate in those who fly into San Bruno, but I can tell you that the first place for many, many, many years that myself and my wife stopped when we visited another city that had cannabis was the cannabis store. And I know that there'll be many people that come into the airport here, and they will already know about Embark, and they will come to our city and not only leave their dollars at Embark, but like I've said many other times, and I'm sure the applicant has said this to you as well, they will shop in our stores and they will eat in our restaurants. And if you can't tell already, I'm excited and I favor your approval tonight. I think their revenue projections are low, so that means that the tax will be, I think what the city will reap will be higher. I'm extremely proud of them as a cannabis retailer for having a unionized workforce. And for those people who are concerned about security, you've heard me say this before, I think they're the safest stores. Most of them are the safest stores that you can have. I love the volunteerism, and I can't wait to work with them as a community member on partnerships and volunteering in our community in ways that they can support San Bruno in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council and staff.
Thank you for the opportunity. I am short to address you this evening. I'm Julie Lynn with the San Mateo Labor Council, representing over 100 affiliate unions and more than 85,000 workers and their families countywide. I'm here to express my full support for Embark and the proposal to operate a retail cannabis store at 120 El Camino Real. It's exciting to be at this point in the city's cannabis retail licensing process, and I want to thank each of you and staff for your ongoing efforts to get us to this point. As you've heard, Embark is a trusted and proven union operator with 15 operational storefronts throughout California, generating meaningful employment opportunities for local residents that include quality wages, benefits, and opportunities for growth, as well as the protections offered by a collective bargaining agreement. Embark has a stellar track record of operating compliant, secure, and safe cannabis storefronts throughout California, and I'm confident they will do the same here. Additionally, Embark has a demonstrated track record of delivering tangible benefits to the communities they serve, both in significant tax revenue as well as through their voluntary community benefit commitments. I commend Embark's approach to delivering said community benefits through the empowerment of local leaders, and I'm honored to serve on Embark's San Bruno Community Advisory Board. Through that advisory board, I, alongside other local leaders, are fully empowered to direct 100% of Embark's voluntary community benefit commitment on a quarterly basis in perpetuity. This is the type of transparency and accountability that helps ensure cannabis retail will be a benefit to our community on a variety of levels. Lastly, but quite importantly, as they said, Embark has a track record of being first to market, as they were in Redwood City and as they were in Madera just last week. As Dustin had told you, should they attain your approval, are on track to open before the end of the year. Embark's committed to continuing to work fastidiously with city staff to open their doors and start generating benefits to our community as soon as possible. Embark has earned my trust, as I hope they've earned yours, and I strongly encourage your support. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
I have no other speaker cards.
Once we close the public hearing, there'll be not another opportunity. Just last time looking around the room, are there anybody else that wishes to speak on this item? Seeing and hearing none, can I have an action to close the public hearing, please?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion Hamilton, second Salazar to close public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimous. Now I'll bring it back to colleagues in regards to the resolution. Anybody have questions, staff or the applicant?
I have just one question.
Yep, Councilmember Hamilton.
So I just have one question. Super excited to get to this point. It's as some of the speakers have been saying, it's been a very long time to get here, and really excited to get past this next phase. So in the staff report, it's mentioned several times that in-store sales are prohibited to folks under 21 years old. I just want to confirm, because it didn't say explicitly in the staff report, that entry to the store completely is prohibited for people under 21. Is that true?
Yeah, that's correct.
Great. Just wanted to confirm that, because it wasn't 100% clear. I knew the answer to it, but I wanted to be 100% sure for the public. Great. So that's it. I could talk all night about how excited I am to vote yes here in a few minutes.
Councilmember Medina.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the staff report. Thank you for your presentation. I have a few questions. The first one is the loading zone. The loading zone is near the corner, and recently the council had limited the location of a taller vehicle closer to the intersection because the line of sight was being blocked over at Santa Lucia. So I just wanted to make sure that our traffic engineer has looked at that. Red curbs are extended near intersections or crosswalks, upcoming laws. So I just wanted to make sure that we weren't creating a obstruction for people trying to make a right off of San Marco, and a loading vehicle is blocking their view. So if staff could look into that, and I'm okay with having the loading zone, just that I'm concerned that having it too close to the San Marco creates a visual obstacle to be able to make that right-hand turn safely. The other, so that's just the concern, and maybe staff can give me some analysis on that if that's been looked at or that can come back and be modified. I do want to say I appreciate many of the things that is in this package. The Community Advisory Board, that benefit. I heard that there were possibly some recent additions or changes to that. I just wanted to hear if that was true. The other thing, and this is probably the biggest thing that I'm concerned about, is the impact to the parking for the residents that live on San Marco. El Camino's not as bad. There's not too many spaces on El Camino, but having 838 customers, and those are not the delivery customers, those are the storefront customers a day. And then looking at the number of hours of operation, if it was all linear, that would be around 70 customers per hour. And that's like, I could just imagine it's going like really, really quick. So the concern I have is where they're gonna park, especially when it gets to the later hours, when San Marco has at least 6 apartment buildings, and it gets difficult to park pretty much everywhere in San Bruno now. And if this, the business hours is up till 8 p.m. and then 8 p.m. for now, or was it 9 p.m.? 9. There's going to be a lot of trouble getting people to park there, because as soon as a resident takes a spot, because there's 6 spots right next to, around the corner on San Marco, we need to delineate those parking spaces so that 1 car takes 1 space and not 4 cars take 6, right? So my concern is, how are we going to address it as we move forward, and thinking about what will trigger a change? What we're seeing in parts of San Bruno is the impact, for example, when you put parking meters on a street, a residential street. The residents now have to struggle to avoid paying for the parking spaces in already a area where parking is already difficult to obtain. So what would trigger a residential parking permit program? It may be even something that we should explore before the problem happens, because it's going to be difficult to get that many people in the area that San Marco has the limitations. So I'm not saying I'm saying that I'm in favor of the project, but I want to mitigate the impact to the residents, because there will be impacts. So I have a couple questions and a comment in there, and looking forward to hearing back.
Yeah, I would like to elaborate.
Yeah, there's so the line of sight and parking, I think.
Yeah. So to answer your first concern on the loading zone, I want to clarify that our traffic engineer has looked at the proposed loading zone. They are the one that suggested the 22-foot length, and they will also be looking at the loading zone during the building permit process. So part of the resolution is that he has to review and approve. But the delivery vehicle that is being proposed is a van. They're not going to have a tall delivery truck, so the engineer finds that it will not obstruct the line of sight. As for the Community Advisory Board and any changes to that, I'll refer that question to Embark to clarify whether there has been any changes. And for parking concerns on San Marco Avenue, as was mentioned in the staff report, Embark did submit a traffic management plan. I will also allow them to elaborate on their initiatives and what procedures and policies they're going to implement to make sure that its customers don't overflow along San Marco Avenue.
Please.
I'll start with the Community Advisory Board. We are very proud that, since our initial selection and going through the conditional use process, that has opened up, and we are looking to add more folks to the advisory board. There's been a couple of folks that have been suggested. We've had some conversations, and the existing board will meet, and that's how folks will get added. Additionally, we reserve spots for a city representative to ensure that the city has visibility into what occurs in those meetings, and non-voting member, of course. Thank you for that. It's my better half for a reason. Having a city representative there just to provide feedback, obviously as available, we have readouts from the meeting that we will share. And then there also is an opportunity for somebody from like the school board or the school district to also participate in these meetings, really to provide input on our advertising campaigns, youth impacts, et cetera. So we are excited for that expansion. As you all know, we tried to limit that board just out of the gate and try to be sensitive to who was on it based on a competitive merit-based process. But now that we're past the merit-based process, we can expand that. As it relates to the traffic management plan, we have been working with staff. A lot of the demand planning around our traffic is we use buy online, pick up in store, which mitigates the time of visit to less than 2 minutes. So you are right, there's a rapid velocity. Part of this too has to do with our good neighbor policy and ensuring that we have our security station to ensure that we're not having impacts. We also understand that this business is, operating this business is a privilege and not a right. We're up for annual renewals, so we're acutely aware, the 7 figures plus investment we're gonna make in this, that we must be good neighbors long-term in order to exist and coexist with the neighbors. We are also looking at additional options for off-street parking. However, the plan that we have in place today, we believe we can satisfy the demand with the parking on site. But again, we will continue to look for additional off-street parking because we believe that will continue to generate greater revenues for us and greater revenues for the city.
All right. Thank you.
And other questions or comments from colleagues at this time? No. And again, I do want to acknowledge too, because knowing that Embark has tried often as far as the parking element. I know that they're aware of the concern, but they also have reached out to somebody with a lot, and they have tried and understood that that did not work. But my point of that is that you have been tried and you did acknowledge that, and you're still looking to go outside the box to see what else might be available. So I do appreciate that. As far as, and I agree with you as far as the board members as well, the important thing is to have it done and done right. And if the doors don't open, the board doesn't really matter at that point. So I think that's where your focus should be, and that's what you are doing. And for that, the board can decide what they want to do once things get established and you get the business operating. Any other, Councilmember Alvarez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to acknowledge Embark for choosing our city to bring your business in. I have one question for the loading zone, the yellow zone. Who will be watching that? Is it the city? How many minutes? I think in the staff report, they only specified the 4-spot parking for every 10 minutes. How about the loading zone, the yellow zone? Who will be watching to make sure that the traffic is going?
So our security is focused on that loading zone. We have cameras there. That maintaining that loading zone and having it open is very critical to our business operations. So we would be monitoring that ourselves and enforcing in so much as if somebody is parked there, asking them to leave. Obviously, if we're having an issue with the loading zone, then we would reach out to your traffic control division or San Bruno Police Department to cite the vehicle that would be parked there in perpetuity.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would also like to clarify that our ordinance requires in the security measures that when product deliveries arrive to the site, they must be escorted by security. So they will always know when product deliveries do arrive and make sure that they leave the site safely.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not,
just one quick question for the city attorney. Can we adopt both these resolutions together, or do we need to go one by one?
Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Hamilton, you could adopt them in one motion.
as read, maybe?
I would very happy to make a motion that we adopt the resolutions as read by the city clerk.
Motion Hamilton, second Alvarez. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay. And the public hearing is concluded. And thank you very much. Now we'll move on to item 8, conduct of business. As I said earlier, item A has been pulled and will be rescheduled tentatively for the next regular city council meeting. Let's go to item B, please.
Item B, consider appointment of 2 city council members to an ad hoc subcommittee for the review of residential parking permit program.
Thank you. First, we're going to have some comments by the city manager.
Mr. Mayor, as you know, per your policies and procedures, you are now faced with naming and appointing 2 of your colleagues, including potentially yourself, to the subcommittee that Councilmember Medina had suggested be put before you. On a unanimous vote 2 weeks ago, the council asked this to be considered. So at this point, Mr. Mayor, you need to name your 2 members to the subcommittee, and the council will then affirm that. Or be asked to affirm that, excuse me.
Thank you. I do want to get just clarity, asking Councilmember Medina, just because it says the ad hoc committee to review the residential parking permit program. So I know there was a lot of discussion 2 weeks ago because of the metering that it might be. So is it the whole program in itself? Is it those that are near the metering, or?
Great question.
Thank you.
Right. Was this a time to go ahead and make some comments on or I can answer your question?
Absolutely. Please.
Okay. So first, I wanted to answer that question. It's primarily to address the parking impacts to the residents that are near downtown where the new parking meters are. That was the primary interest. So I apologize for not being more clear on that. If I can go ahead and go forward. I wanted to thank staff for the staff report. I sincerely appreciate the preliminary time and cost estimates. However, to be clear, my request for the subcommittee does not require staff time. The subcommittee doesn't need staff to meet with the impacted residents. The subcommittee would work independently to obtain and compile information. This information would be provided to the council and staff in the near future with a summary and recommendations. In the past years, I have served on 2 similar subcommittees that efficiently met with the community, which these committees were the Downtown Improvement Committee and the Clean San Bruno Committee. These subcommittees provided information and recommendations to council and needed extremely minimal staff time. It was primarily done with 2 council members meeting with the community and then providing the results of those meetings to council, and council had the opportunity to take action or to do nothing. So that's the clarity I think that is for this subcommittee, that it would be really requiring minimal amount of time for this phase. And after we would return with our findings, then we would be able to talk to staff about it and then find out if what needed to happen from there. So there's no ongoing 20 hours a month necessary at this time. It's designed to operate like it has in the past, with the understanding that our council streamlined our council initiatives to match what our city manager said. But I think in this case, because the installation of the parking meters is impacting residents, that we need to take action. I'll leave it with this. Imagine if on your street, parking meters were installed and you couldn't park on the other side. What would you do? And I think that council should act in allowing the subcommittee to move forward, to meet with the residents and hear directly from them and bring that information back to the council for a recommended action. Those are my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Other comments at this time? Because then I'm going to also go to the manager after.
Sure. Hearing how that's going to be structured and hearing that there would be no staff involvement, I am concerned that we would appoint 2 council members to go out, directly talk to staff without direction. And I mean, when we do polling, when we do any kind of survey, it's pretty structured, and we follow a protocol, which I don't know that as elected people we would have the expertise to follow. So, I mean, that would be one concern for me, and I'd like to hear from staff on whether they could propose an alternative that would be more in line with what we usually do in this sort of thing, where we would. And I know we've done it in the past where we've polled impacted residents. I know when the train station was moved, we did a similar outreach effort, and so I don't think it's anything new for staff to do, but it definitely wasn't elected people doing it then. It was staff.
City Manager.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The reason staff is recommending being a part of this is one of my concerns is for a council to get too far down a road and create expectations that cannot be delivered on. I mean, it's this idea around residents expressing concern about parking, and perhaps council members who may unwittingly acknowledge and say, by golly, here's a path forward, and then staff ends up being the bad guy saying you can't do that. And suddenly you got to go back and start all over again. We can nip those things in the bud before something even begins to launch, to be able to, or not nip it in the bud, perhaps redirect it in a way that it is something that could be plausible or possible. I think there are expertises on our staff that could help provide that level of guidance. I think this could be a little bit of what I'll call common sense running into the practicality of certain kinds of things. And for example, the idea of, everyone gets a permit, great. Well, someone has to issue those permits. Somebody has to enforce those permits. I mean, there's a whole staff background on this. And on behalf of my staff, I'd rather be involved up front on these conversations so we don't go askew and create expectations that now the community is going to say, well, you didn't deliver, council. We want to set you up for success, whatever that looks like. And so through the assistant city manager, I was in full agreement that I think we need to be present. Some form of staff needs to be present during these meetings just to provide a level of guidance, to provide a level of consistency, to provide a level of ability to sort of get something done, whatever that thing looks like. And I would just be worried about creating expectations that we just can't deliver on.
I was going to also suggest that whatever method we use to engage with the community avoids having maybe a very loud minority dominate a conversation that could negatively impact a lot of people. I know with the parking meters, there was an initial really loud outcry against them without actually letting the program bake in. We heard some very positive comments today, which I was very glad to hear. But I think there is a potential for people that are very impacted by this to dominate a conversation and possibly leave out a lot of people that I think that, when the reality sets in of the real impacts of having a parking program may negatively impact more people than benefit a few. So I just want to make sure that we have an opportunity for everybody to speak up. I don't know that setting up town hall meetings is necessarily the best forum. I don't know if there's another way that we could solicit information that might give us a better sampling. When we were doing the grade separation meetings, I know that some people that were there were some people there that had some very strong opinions, and they definitely dominated the conversations. And just, in talking to people afterwards, I realized that there were a lot of people that were not willing to speak up or maybe hadn't thought it through enough, but would have had a much different outcome in the perception that we took away from those meetings. So I just want to make sure we guard against that somehow.
Tom.
So, no worries. What you're saying makes sense, City Manager. And what I'm concerned with is that, we went down this road, before, several years ago, and we ended up with a residential parking permit program that we have today, which has to be called a failure. It has never been even proposed in any neighborhood because the parameters of it are unpalatable to every neighborhood. So in whatever form that looks like, we absolutely have to go out and engage with the residents to see what they would want. And if it turns out that the overwhelming thing that everybody wants is just not doable, then the purpose of the committee is to communicate that and try to educate people on why we can't do it this particular way. I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope there is a way that we can make this happen and give some relief to these neighborhoods. So I understand the difficult spot that we're in because, I'm very, very proud of this council that we were brave enough to take that big list of initiatives and chop it down to 5 so that we can move forward and get some things done and start crossing things off of the list instead of kicking things down the road. And this is another thing. So I'm going to try, if there's a way that we can try to compromise on this, to try to do something to move it forward without compromising the other initiatives and deprioritizing other things, because it's very obvious that the parking program is impacting the folks that live immediately adjacent, and we didn't do anything. We haven't done anything at all to help out those neighbors. And I just worry that if we don't move ahead, even slowly, the problem is just going to get worse and worse and worse as we move ahead. So I think this is something that we need to address. So that's it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you all for your comments. I don't object to it. I just was thinking of a way that we can move forward because I don't want to slow us down. I get it. I agreed to it. I've held back a lot of the things I want to see get done because I know we need to move forward with what we can actually do. So based on 20 hours per month of senior civil engineering time, okay, we can have the input, that's fine. We're going to find a way to get the data. I was going to go house to house, door hangers, and invite everyone like block by block. And I know whatever information that, I'm just made an assumption that I was going to serve on it, but I think I should, but we will work this out. We're going to get input. I'm not going to listen to the loudest voice. I think we have to listen to everyone. And not everyone's going to be happy because parking is very difficult in San Bruno, not just in downtown, in many other places. It's just in downtown we have parking meters now. So it's not only frustrating, but it's going to cost you to park across the street. Doesn't cost you anywhere else. Not where I live. It's very difficult to park where I live. I know it's very difficult for a number of us there. So this is, I'm open to it. I think we could quickly get on and take care of street by street and get together some information that we can share. We know from the get-go, I've already walked, there's not enough spaces. There's like 0.7 or 0.8 car spaces available for each residential unit that's on these streets. It's just, the city wasn't built out for the number of cars that are here. So I look forward to, hopefully we can go on and taking 20 hours. I hope it's not that much and that many hours, and we will move forward. I just think we need to get the input.
So, again, staff is asking that they be present, and I think it comes down to, as something was suggested, or just as people were brainstorming, it's like, we'll just give everybody a permit or a tag or whatever, as long as it was registered. I know where, when I go home, there's an area, like, we have trailers. They're registered, but they're probably registered to somebody's house, potentially, don't know. So, we're talking RVs, we're talking boats, we're talking, there is a cost associated with it. So all of that, I think that's why it is important for staff to be there for the logistics of it, or the true data. Are we having more complaints? Are there more tickets being issued? And I know not just because of the meters, but the surrounding. There are areas in town that, again, in the residential parking permit program, usually everybody was going to get 1.5, rounded up to 2. And even that still, probably there's not enough spaces if everybody within there. So there's an apartment building and they have carports, but yet they can apply, because you can't say they can't, then in essence, they just overflow out into the street as well, or potentially. So anyway, that's where I'm thinking staff, what I'm hearing from staff is, we want to get ahead of this and not get all this data and it's like, okay, well, let's just, everybody gets one. Okay, so that comes back. Okay, where's the cost? How is it going to be paid for? And I do believe if it was $5, $7, whatever it is, dollars, because that's what the administrative cost is, I think they're going to be more frustrated if you come home and you can't park. And then I'm paying to park on a public street, and I can't find a parking spot, and I've just paid. So that's where I get a little concerned. Anyway, City Manager?
So, yeah, I mean, the comment was made about a compromise. I'd just be curious, would there be any value in promoting the existing program back into the community? In other words, reminding the community members that there is an existing program. So maybe before modifying it, do we just look at seeing if there's any takers on what we have on the books presently? And maybe that's been done. To my knowledge, it hasn't been done in any comprehensive manner. We do have a program.
Mr. Mayor, I'd be willing to try to sell that program, but it's flawed. But we could still say, hey, this is the first step. First step is, are you interested in the existing program? And it's like, okay, so they're not. So what would you be interested in getting to that point? So I have spoken to a number of people about the program, and the first thing I hear is, so I got to go get the petition. I have to go do all this work. And it's like, yeah, I could help you. And I contacted our city attorney to say it was okay for me to help. And she says it is, even in my neighborhood. So, and all of you could try to start a residential parking permit program in your neighborhood too. It's okay, we can do it. So I want to show our community that we are trying to help them. So whatever it needs to be, I'll try to sell that first one. But it's going to be difficult because on one side of the street on Mastic, there's no parking at all. So it's just a wild configuration that our city inherited over time.
Councilmember Hamilton.
If I can just get a clarification of your suggestion, City Manager, are you suggesting that we go out and re-advertise the program in lieu of doing a subcommittee, or as a first proposed action for a subcommittee?
No, the term I heard was compromise, and what I was trying to figure out is, how do I thread a needle here? And one of the thoughts was, we do have an existing program. And with due respect to Councilmember Medina, I just think if life is tough enough, people will step up and finally do something for themselves rather than waiting for us to step in and do it for them. So I guess I'd be curious, how bad is the problem? Complaining versus complaining and actually picking up the permit and saying, by golly, I'm going to go do this because it's that bad. I would be curious about that sort of threshold for people to say it's inconvenient or it's a mess, it's broken, something must happen. And at that point, I do think our residents would step up and say, how do I fix this? What can I do? And we can point them to the program and say, here's what you can do. There's rumors behind me right now. We actually may have an application in. We're confirming that right now.
There's an application on Hensley Avenue.
Okay, all right. So again, somebody did apply.
That's because there's going to be 125 residences moving
I understand.
on the other side of the block. But I accept the compromise to be the first action of the subcommittee would be to get the existing plan out to people and have a couple meetings about it and be able to share what the existing plan is, get the feedback, and bring it back to either to the city engineer or whatever staff person that you want to receive that information. And they may be, maybe they can go to the meetings too if they want to, but it's hard to get a lot of people to meet.
I agree.
Yeah.
It takes a number of smaller meetings and working with that. I am fortunate to have that time.
I also want, we have speakers, please.
We have 2 speakers, Justin and Matt Jones. You want to?
Hello again. I just wanted to say that I wanted to praise Councilmember Marty Medina for his dedication to working with the community on this. I think that setting up this ad hoc committee with whoever it is, with so long as its central tenet is engaging with the community, I think that the city manager's idea about compromising and presenting the current RPPP to the community is a good starting point. As it's been said by multiple council members today on the dais, there just has to be some start. Otherwise, this problem is just going to be kicked down further down the road, whether we like it or not, right? People are going to buy more cars, especially as the population increases. And as San Bruno builds more housing, more and more people are going to come here. And especially since our public transit infrastructure is not fully built to handle new people are going to default to using cars because it's what's most convenient in the moment. And so because of that, there's a lot of talk tonight also about getting ahead of the problem. This is definitely a way to get ahead of that problem. Another thing to note is that with the cannabis store coming, people need to have, it's important that we have all of our I's dotted and our T's crossed on this, just because, the parking issue is not going away. And also, I was also kind of confused about the city manager's rationale about the RPPP, about, things getting so bad to the point where residents are going to come up and fix it. I don't think we should wait for a car crash to happen before we put on our seatbelt, right? When we're dealing with issues like this is something where being really proactive and understanding that the community has a very limited amount of time as compared to everybody in here, including myself, that's something to really recognize. Many people in the city are working individuals and have income levels in households of, I think, 2 or 3 that reach, the bare minimums of what's considered like low income, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm horribly mistaken. But given the makeup of our city, it's just, I feel like it is really important that this committee is set up, that engagement with the community happens, and that we're very proactive on this. Otherwise, trust in local government, and as the city manager brought up earlier, the city staff being painted as almost like the bad guys in this. They aren't. They're working hard to get many things done. It'll happen, right? Because people are going to be like, well, why didn't you do these parking permits earlier, right? You're bringing in all this new business, you've got all this new housing in, and you didn't deal with the parking? What's wrong with you, right? And so that's going to happen if we don't have something starting, right? Even just as a show of good faith to people being most affected, saying like, hey, look, we are having these conversations, we want to engage with you, and we're not there yet. And I think so long as we're transparent, the people of the city will understand where you're coming from and the kind of effort you're putting in. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks. Next speaker, please.
I just wanted to echo a lot of what Justin just said. From my experience as a planner working on different projects and in different cities, I absolutely feel like it's the right direction to go to enable a parking permit process, to have a process, and I love that Councilmember Marty Medina has been doing a great job engaging the community. And I said this in an email to a number of you, including City Manager's office. You know, I think it's unfair to have the burden of a lot of these conversations fall on the District 4 rep, who's Councilmember Medina, you know, carrying the weight of a lot of these decisions. It is a citywide issue. We have a lot of people who go in because the area is adjacent to the downtown. We do need something that's comprehensive. So I fully support a paid parking permit system, parking meters in downtown. I think this is, when you have limited space, you have to be able to regulate. You have to be able to price it effectively to change behavior. And so all of this, I think what we're seeing is we're seeing an increased number of ADUs being built. We're seeing more affordable housing projects go online. And what's been happening with all these state bills is that they're saying, developers, it's no longer your responsibility to put parking on private parcels. That all spills over into the public right of way, you know, and so it becomes our problem, the government's problem. And that, for me, is a major flaw that I see in a lot of these state housing bills, is that it effectively makes all of these issues our problem, and the developer doesn't have to put in that time and that money and that space for parking. So I think a way to handle that would be, perhaps the city could look into a TDM plan for an entire area rather than just looking on a project basis. Look at it for that whole area. Like, instead of issuing a third parking permit to those houses, you could say the third permit's going to be $400, or we'll give you $100 to buy an e-bike. And then you've incentivized people to not drive as much, because right now, you know, myself, I moved back in with my parents. We're seeing multi-generational households where it's one person, one car, and the neighborhoods on that side of the city have houses that literally don't have driveways or garages. So all that spillover is just happening into the street in some of the oldest sections of the city. So I don't think we should be treating the city all the same. Acknowledge that there was a time when that neighborhood was built before the automobile. Let's revert back to that, have a TDM strategy that emphasizes, you know, shared parking agreements, you know, car share, transit, biking. If we did something like that that's holistic, I think we really could get something that works for the whole city. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Maria Concha.
I love my neighborhood on the east side. It's wonderful because there's no parking. And that was definitely sarcastic. What I see is it definitely is going to be a problem going forward, because in 2025, they're going to start ticketing people for parking too close to that intersection. And 20 feet back from the corner is going to take away every space in front of my house on both sides, on Pine Street and on Fifth Avenue. It's going to take it away. And right now, multi-generational housing is what's happening. And we also have people that run their businesses from their home. So you've got the landscaping trucks, and you've got the electrician vans, and you've got the plumbers, and everybody else that are fighting for space on the street, but then you don't have it. Our family home, which was built over 100 years ago there, when my great-uncle built that house, he didn't think of a driveway. He had a garage, but didn't realize the house would be around this long. So we don't have a driveway to park a car. So the only other thing that we can do now, and I'm sure that maybe other people have thought about, and where their lots are, is possibly taking away from landscaping that they have, which is what we're considering, and you're going to go to the city and see what's going on. We've got rather large shrubbery that's there that we're going to remove, but we want to be able to park off the street. There's going to be enough, a thoroughfare enough for people to walk on the sidewalk, but we'll be able to get our cars off the street, but without having a driveway. So maybe that's something we have to look at. It's also really disconcerting that we have businesses that are adjacent to our neighborhoods. The auto body repairs, enterprise car rental, you name it. There's another car rental place on 7th Avenue that's nondescript, that take up parking places, and they'll be there when street cleaning or whatever, and they don't care if they get a ticket or not, but they're taking away spaces from people that legitimately live there in the neighborhood. And it's not fair. So maybe we do, and I was going to say, and speaking to Marty offline, I'll be happy, since I'm now have the time, I'll be happy to work with you on that, to canvass the neighborhood to see what we can find. But the hard thing is too, that you don't have people that want to participate. So, every neighborhood's going to be different. And I have a funny feeling that in ours, it's going to be harder than most. So, but I'm willing to work on it, Marty. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
I have no other speaker cards.
Okay. Absolutely. And then Councilmember Alvarez after.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so I wanted to thank Marty, too, for bringing this forward. I know we've been talking for a lot of years about revisiting the program and trying to do something, and it is kind of frustrating. And what kind of jumped to the front of my mind is listening to the speakers is that there are a number of different issues that we would need to address. The multi-generational housing, having more drivers in a house than we historically have had is one issue. And I don't think a residential parking permit is going to help that, because, the people live there. Where it can help is where we have the businesses that spill into the neighborhood, and we could probably get rid of those, and it might help some. But we never really got good data on which problem is bigger, or if, which one would help more. And I just, incentives for people to not drive, I think is a great idea. I just don't know how effective that would be for people that are not, they don't work near enough to be bikeable. So, but again, I do support the idea of doing something, and we need to investigate it. And so it will be interesting to see if there's a different take on the program now that the impact is greater.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Salazar. Based on my experience, when I used to live in Daly City, and they've always implemented residential parking, and even though I purchased the parking, the permit, I still cannot find a spot because of the number of family members. I think what we can, from what I heard from the last council meeting, is the business owners and some of the renters, they are complaining about the hours from 8 to 8. Perhaps maybe we can revisit revising the hours and still implement the parking permit for the residents who choose to purchase it. It will still help.
Oh, no worries. So I'm supportive of having the first the first step of going out and re-advertising the existing program. I would recommend that, in the interest of getting data and figuring out where we are, as Councilmember Salazar was mentioning, that if we go out and talk to people about it, and if it turns out that people are in favor of doing it, then great. Okay, then we'll move ahead with what we've got. But if they don't want it, we need to follow it up and ask them why. We need to understand. If you're telling me this isn't going to work for you, tell me why, so that we can really start to get our handle on the problem.
Yeah, and I think staff needs to be there because there are, and what is the problem? So, like, I have somebody nearby that they come, I don't know how often, maybe once a month for the dog. So they couldn't park there technically anymore. The person down the street has somebody comes to clean the house. What do? Somebody who's a caregiver, babysitter. What happens there? And I think that's where that's why I think staff needs to be there from the beginning. And if we want to talk about history, where Mark Howard, Tom Hamilton, Rico Medina, and Marty Medina were of that subcommittee, and we didn't have staff. So, and it took a while, and we brought something which I'm being told is now a failure. So why repeat?
We have one.
Well, why repeat history? So I think staff being on it from the get-go is probably the right thing, so that we are addressing all that, as well as the economics of it. You know, who is going to issue it? You know, all it could be is like, you know, do you do like the city of San Mateo, where there was a certain period that you had to go in to City Hall and then apply for it, and then it was only so many, and then it was done, and for the certain area. So I think something has to be looked at, and I think there's nothing wrong with revisiting, because obviously we have one application which is not about the meters. It's because of the development that's going in that we have no control over. And so, you know, that's going to cause a challenge. I know when we had the committee meeting in the past, it was like we didn't want to impose it. But now we might be saying to impose it. So there's just a lot of those variables. And I remember having a meeting with residents at Bayview Park, and that was over the grade separation, Scott. And there was 50 people that showed. And everybody was on the same page about do not take the houses. So that was great. So after the meeting, there became neighbor to neighbor, because they were complaining about parking, and some wanted it, some didn't want it. And then they started battling, because it was, well, I have too many cars. So now what? So I think that's where we need the direction and the logistics of staff from the beginning. But like you said, I guess promoting what we have, but we kind of know where the things are. It's about having to go and the percentages and all of that. So anyway, is there any other comments from folks at this time? So what I was going to suggest is that, because last meeting, Councilmember Hamilton, you volunteered.
I think I did, sure.
You did. I took notes. And then Councilmember Medina, though, I read some email where it was already stated that somebody said. Yeah, it wasn't from you.
It wasn't for me.
No,
right.
no, absolutely not. But you had just said you had hoped to be on it, and you brought it forward. So is it all right if the two of you work with city staff?
I accept.
I do.
Okay. Do I need to actually, should I have a motion, or since everybody's okay, I think?
If everyone's okay. The appointment is by the mayor, subject to city council confirmation. So I don't know what the process has been in the past, but it seems.
Is anybody objecting?
Nobody objects.
Yeah.
Okay, I hear silence, so that's, hey, we're on a roll. So, okay, that's now done. So that concludes conduct of business. Let's move on to item 9, council committee report outs. Are there any? Nope, nope, okay. Let's go to comments from council members. We'll start with Councilmember Marty Medina, review San Bruno Millbrae shared resources through a city council subcommittee. Ms. Medina.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the past months, I've spoken with Millbrae Mayor Anders Fung about how our two neighboring cities could possibly review the potential savings and efficiencies in sharing resources. The concept is there are numerous benefits in working with your neighboring city, including cost savings, increased efficiency, improved service quality, stronger regional cooperation, environmental sustainability, enhanced disaster preparedness and response, and economic development. Basically, by pooling resources and working together, neighboring cities can achieve better outcomes for their residents and communities. So I sent an email last month and to our city manager and mayor expressing my interest and the mayor of Millbrae's interest. And so this is to agendize this discussion for another time.
Okay, are there any speakers?
I have one speaker card, however, it doesn't reference if it's for item A or B. Matt Jones? Okay.
Okay.
Then I have no speaker cards for this.
Okay. So is it all departments? Is it everything? Is it specific departments? Or do you know? Or?
It wasn't anything specific. It was getting a couple council members or the mayor together with their mayor and another council member to have a discussion, to initiate the discussion of the interests. And some of those things could be median landscaping. We both share El Camino. They start in El Camino, they work up, they stop right on our border, where perhaps you get one contract and you go ahead and work with the median landscaping and you come all the way down and do it all at the same time. So larger scale effort, a little bit of cooperation. It should be a little bit more efficient with the traffic control being taken care of. Another example is how many Vector trucks does Millbrae have, and how many Vector trucks does San Bruno have? And is there a need to go get another Vector truck or another cherry picker? Or let's talk about the resources we have in our equipment and maybe how we can possibly share it on an hourly basis. Another example is they have community events. We have community events. Perhaps we can purchase K-Rail, save it in one of our yards, and when it comes down to needing them, we borrow the K-Rail, they borrow the K-Rail. So it's just exploring these number of things that have no commitments that we bring back to staff, to the city managers. I don't know if the city manager would want to be there. It probably might be a little helpful for the city managers to be there. Yes, I see a nodding head. So I understand that's a cost. But again, this is something where, man, how do we do more with less? And Millbrae has similar needs. They're a small city too, and maybe there's some things that we could work on together. I don't know if it's with the garage, with the mechanics, with different type of equipment, but I think it's worth exploring.
So I spoke to the mayor of Millbrae at Progress, and he told me he was looking at public works, fire, and police were the areas of interest. So that's why I was trying to clarify, since you've had the conversation, that's just what we had on that evening. So when we start saying shared resources, and they have a unique situation in the sense of they're with the sheriff's department, and they're also with Central Fire. So are we talking about looking at items like that? Because if we're talking about going to the sheriff's, that's a no start for me. If it's about us inheriting or contracting out, that is going to take a lot of time and effort, and that's what I'm trying to figure out, where, at what level. I think that also having the city managers talk to say what is realistic, and they should do that first, and say that, because if we're going to come back and you're saying, okay, let's see about police. So is that when because their contracts are up? They also have, a fire assessment vote that concludes next month, which is going to be very determined to see what happens with them and with Central. If there are certain resources that are now shared, what about the governance? Do they want a seat at the table? How does that work? We had, for people's historical perspective, is that we did share a police chief for a period of time, Neil Telford, with the city of Millbrae, and we looked into that. We also did administrative shared services with Central, Millbrae, and San Bruno for a period of time. That took months and months, a lot of meetings, a lot of work from all the agencies sitting down together. And then in the end, that fell through because the city of Millbrae said, we'll just contract out, and then San Bruno was left by themselves. And so we have our department. So that's where I'm just trying to understand and thinking that it would be I would think, best for the two city managers to say what is realistic, to narrow the scope rather than just sitting down and saying, okay, so what do you think? But you've had some commentary as far as maybe some examples, which I think are great. But I just worry about the work that I watched happen when we did the fire or with the police. It was a lot of staff time because they had to do an analysis, who's getting what, how is it being divided, et cetera. So, and as I've learned, governance is always the harder part rather than just a conversation, which I've watched. Any thoughts, City Manager?
No, I mean, the city manager of Millbrae and I have sat down preliminarily and started to have these conversations around, what might this look like? And I think in his mind, and there's nothing wrong with this idea of, everything's fair game, particularly if there are efficiencies can be created. The problem is everything's fair game, which makes it a really big conversation. Like, where do you narrow, where do you stop? On the administrative side, for example, of everything we do, 2 finance departments, 2 HR departments, 2 IT departments. Are we talking about that? We could be. Again, I think everything becomes fair game, and I'm not sure if there's any obvious low-hanging fruit to pick first. I think the, excuse me, I think the law enforcement question was the first one that came up maybe about 6 months ago. Knowing full well Millbrae's contract with the sheriffs is set to expire or be renewed or whatever their choice might be. Yeah, we can certainly have these conversations. Tom and I are certainly capable of sort of figuring out where is there some obvious, I'll use the word obvious carefully, obvious opportunities, and see where we go from there. That's certainly, I just made a note to call Tom again, so.
Because what I do get concerned about is I know we've sat up here and our city manager said there would be 5 initiatives. So we've done that. So now we're adding the residential. Now we're wanting to add, and so in essence, as we say, we understand that we have a lean staff and we want to have things that we know we can't accomplish, but yet now we're putting on more. And that's why I believe that the 2 city managers should set kind of the parameter and see what's even plausible, feasible. And they may say like, okay, let's just say it's police, and if we don't have a say, then we don't want to talk. So let's just not open that door. The mayor had some thoughts that he shared with me, but that's why I think this would be helpful to initiate that, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course, in this case, I mean, the most important people that know, with all their experience of years between Mr. Williams, I know our city manager's name, Tom, please. I didn't want to call him Alex, but it's, McIntyre. So I still think it's worthwhile. It's just an initial conversation. It doesn't have to be super structured. I would be relying on our city manager to kind of guide us through this. Just that we haven't ever, in my time, had a subcommittee that provided that direction, that, hey, we should be working together. We should be able to find something. There's enough things out there that we all are having trouble with. And then it comes back, they figure it out. Then it comes back to council if they want to bring something forward. But I think this is the opportunity. They have budget issues. We're solving ours. Well, maybe we can save something by doing something. Maybe we don't need to buy another piece of equipment. So it's worth it. I know their streets are worse than ours. And one of the things that we talked about is how could we get a larger scale project in paving so that we can get that economy of scale down so that we can do more, and maybe combining projects, you could do that. I don't know. But it's worth having a conversation, leasing a grinding machine and being able to grind our streets. After you grind the street, if you have the experience, the paving part seems, with the design, the paving part goes pretty quick. And you know how much we love paving here in San Bruno, so I'll stand by that, because the more that we have, yes, the more we do.
So am I hearing that we would like the two managers to talk and see, since they kind of know the councils, what thoughts or suggestions of areas?
Well, yeah.
And then bring back, I'm just trying to minimize staff time, but I'm also knowing, like, sometimes when the fire shared services were even a discussion, it was because of the economics and the economy. And Burlingame needed help, believe it or not, at that time. And so that's what started that. And then it was about a station closing. And so it was a lot of moving parts. And I just don't want to start, putting too much on. And so would that be acceptable, City Manager, that you and, we'll call him Tom and Alex can have a conversation and just see, what are the areas of interest? I know what the mayor told me, there was 3 departments. This is kind of in a broader perspective. So I just want us to narrow the scope to minimize the time that staff, to have a report if they were to contract, as an example with us, is a lot of time. And I think we need to know that too. Like, what would that take to bring something back, as an example?
Yeah, that's a really big bite. I think looking for efficiencies and the lower hanging fruit that exists, those are the easier things that a conversation would start bringing forward. I still think it would be nice to have the subcommittee there. Our time is pretty inexpensive compared to our city manager's time. So if they're going to be there, it'd be nice to hear, I think.
Well, I can't appoint tonight anyway.
No, I know. This is all about the agendizing of it.
Yeah. Yes, but I would like to.
Oh, yeah, by all means. Of course, yeah, they could continue,
have a conversation.
I believe he's still up. It's 10:15, so, yeah, let's get this meeting over with.
Through the chair, I had a question, because I spoke to Mayor Fung as well on the same topic, and so I guess already 3 of us have spoken to him. And I know that he was going to take action with his 4 of us.
Great.
He was going to bring it up with his council to appoint a subcommittee from their side. Do we know if that's happened? Have they taken that action? Okay. He wasn't at the last CCAG either.
Maybe our city manager will find out tomorrow or tonight when he calls up Tom.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and in general, and conceptually, I am always in favor of looking for savings wherever we can find them.
I am too, and there is nothing wrong with talking and asking, and that's where I'd like the managers to start, because they can do that tomorrow maybe, or after, whatever, sometime this week, which then would help us structure to understand kind of where they're looking at it, what's viable, and then also to hear back from what their council is envisioning, if that makes sense.
So, Mr. Mayor, is it fine that we will be able to agendize it, and if it doesn't work out, we can just strike it from the next agenda? Because if we don't agendize it tonight, then it will wait another 2 more weeks.
That's correct. Do you think that would give you enough time to talk to the city manager?
Well, just as a gentle reminder to the 5 of you, I will be leaving town tomorrow, returning on the 28th, so it won't happen. But giving me some time to work with Tom, say, once I get back, we can schedule this for a June. If the council is interested in forming this committee, or subcommittee, excuse me, we can either bring this back to ask the same question on May 28th, or give us direction, but waive our own protocols to allow us to do this appointment in June.
I'm going to also say, because of the budget. We keep saying we have the budget that should be the priority, that's going to tell us where we're at.
Correct.
We still need to open up the Recreation Aquatic Center, and we need staff to focus on that.
Correct.
And so I would say, I forgot, yes, you're entitled, and so you won't be here for a little bit. So I would say back in June.
Yeah, through the mayor, my understanding when we vote to agendize things, that it's not absolutely required that it has to be at the next meeting. In fact, I know that's not true, because I've agendized a bunch of stuff that happened, months away. So yeah, so if we can vote to, if we have an agreement that we want to talk about this again, and then it'll end up on an agenda when it ends up on the agenda, based on the practicality of the city managers having their meeting and having something to bring back to us.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. City Attorney.
I think that you typically take a vote. If the city council's going to vote to put this on to have this on a future agenda, we'd have a vote to
Okay.
do that, a motion and approve.
I'll make a motion to agendize the subject.
I'll second. Make it easy for the minutes. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And again, it does not need to be on the 28th at a future agenda. After you've had your conversation and kind of can give us more. Any other comments? What days? Okay, let's go to item B, Councilmember Alvarez, council compensation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to request an open discussion by agendizing the request for a council salary increase. I selected few items from the League of California Cities City Council Salaries and Benefit Conference, and I can read some of the salaries and benefits based on that conference. That was picked from the one of the topics, or a few of the topics. Proposed salary increase to $950 a month based on the city population. Under the Government Code Section 36516A1, a city council may enact an ordinance providing that each council member of the city shall receive a salary based on the population of the city as set forth in paragraph 2. The salaries approved by ordinance under paragraph 1 shall be as follows. A, in the cities up to and including 35,000 in population, up to and including $950 per month. Given the city of San Bruno population is 42,054 based on the 2022 publicpay.ca.gov. Item 2, maximum amount 5% increases, election. Government Code Section 36516 authorizes the city to provide its city council members with an initial salary of between $300 and $1,000 per month, depending upon the city's population. Section 36516.5 also authorizes an increase in council salaries in an amount not to exceed 5% of each calendar year from the operative date of the last adjustment. Thus, if the council has not had a salary increase in the last 20 years, it can adopt an ordinance effectively doubling its salary. 20 years times 5% equals 100%. So looking at the City of San Bruno adopted ordinance subsection 2.04.140, item C, salaries established, each member of the city council shall receive as salary the sum of $486 per month. Said salary shall be payable from and after the date upon which one or more members of the city council begin a new term of office following the November 6, 2001 election. In the same manner as salaries are payable to other officers and employees of the city, Therefore, the increase that is requested could be 100%, doubling the pay of the current pay of the council members. Based on the publicpay.ca.gov, year 2022, the current population for in the city of San Bruno is 42,054, and the current total wages is 5,832. The next item, salary must be established by ordinance. The establishment of city council salary must be by ordinance, not resolution. Code Section 36516A4, reimbursement of expenses. One of the benefits of the council member could be a reimbursement of expenses. Pursuant to Government Code Section 365.14.5, City Council members may be reimbursed for actual expenses incurred in the performance of official duties. Any amounts paid by a city to reimburse a council member for actual and necessary expenses shall not be included for purposes of determining salary. Code Section 365.16E. And the last item is the Conflict of Interest Government Code Section 1090. Under Government Section 53208, there will be no Section 1090 violation when council members approve salary of health benefit for themselves. City council salary does not constitute an economic interest in a source of income, because the Act's definition of income expressly excludes salary and reimbursement for expenses and per diem received from a state, local, or federal government agency. In conclusion, each city council faced with the question of determining its own salary and benefits must confront an ethical dilemma and must make a value judgment as to salary and benefits. It is likely that some of the electorate in each city, in the wake of the Bell scandal, now feels that all public servants, including council members, are overpaid. Many may feel that since members of the boards of directors of local nonprofit corporations receive no salary for their charitable endeavors, so too, council members should also receive no salary or benefits since they are engaged in the public charitable endeavor for good of the community. On the other hand, it can also be fairly stated that council members can and do put in long hours and have sometimes weighty responsibilities worthy of compensation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Because of the hour, let's call on any public comments in case they need to leave.
I have 2 speaker cards, Matt Jones and Wissam D.
Hi, everyone. I studied poli-sci. I took a simulated Congress class in college because I'm a big civics nerd and love public meetings. There was a running joke that our teacher used to tell us that every time the new Congress would come into session, someone would try to raise their salaries, and they would call a voice vote, and everyone would say aye, and then someone would call for roll call vote, and everyone would flip their votes because it was on the record. Sorry, I had to. This is coming up, and I can't help but laugh a little bit. There was an article in the Daily Journal recently that San Mateo City Council is looking into this themselves. I know the rising cost of living, we're reassessing. I think it's great that this would be put on the agenda. It'd be really nice to have a conversation about compensation. And I would be open to the idea of council getting a raise on their salaries. I think overall council has a lot of responsibility, a lot of, reviewing the agenda packets and going to public meetings, engaging with constituents. So I think it would be worth visiting and having that conversation. And with it being on the agenda, we'd have a chance to have a comprehensive look at compensation. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, Council. I'd like to echo a lot of what Matt had to say. I'm actually very supportive of increasing public service members' pay. I know that it comes with a lot of responsibility and that you're there to advocate for your constituents. However, as a member of this community and about Palestinian community, I haven't really felt much representation or acknowledgement from this council towards our community. Specifically, Sandy, since you are presenting this, there has been a lot of silence on your behalf. And I think you know that the Palestinian community is very affected by your responses and your inaction towards the community. And being a member of this city who pays the taxes, who pays your salary, I don't see why we should pay you extra for not representing us. There have been many occasions where we've tried to reach out to you and to many council members that are sitting here, and we've gotten nothing. There hasn't been one time where you have come on your own accord to come speak with us. And we have reached out several times, and we've gotten none. So what makes you think that we should pay you more? On behalf of the Palestinian community, I think that we would say not to, right? So with that being said, if you want a raise and you want the public to really, support what you're going for, I think you should reciprocate and show us as to why you should. So thank you.
Thank you. And we have another speaker card.
Anne Frank.
Hi. I fully support you guys getting a raise. I think the past few months, since December, you guys have been here for hours, hours and hours, dealing with things that are way above your pay grade. So again, I want to thank you guys for being here time and time after, it's been a lot of crazy stuff going on in our country and a lot of responsibility and a lot of insults have been thrown your way, and I don't think that's fair or right. So I just want to thank you guys for being here today. You don't get paid much. This is not the kind of job you take if you're trying to make money. So you guys are here because you actually do care about our community, and you do care about our city. So thank you for that.
Thank you for your comments.
I have no other speaker cards.
Okay, I'm going to go to Councilmember Hamilton.
So there's been, with the recent changes in law, and there's been a lot of discussion about this topic. And when I saw it on the agenda, I figured that the common argument for considering increasing council compensation would have been brought, and that common argument has been to encourage more people to run for office, to make this job a little more attractive to people who might want to run for office and participate in the process, because it's so hard to find candidates, and especially now that we're in districts, it's going to be even harder. But I didn't hear any of those arguments. The argument made tonight seems to be this job is hard, and the law allows us to give ourselves a raise, so we should get more money. So we've been hearing for months and years about our lack of revenue, that we have, that things are so expensive. We've got $1 billion in unfunded capital improvement projects. We're actively talking right now of going to the voters to ask them for more money because we can't pay for everything. And in the midst of all of that, we're going to ask to give ourselves more money? No. No. This is a horrendous time to ask for this. I would wonder if the whole idea of us going to put a revenue measure on the ballot, was that even considered when bringing this forward now? I would be curious to hear that from Councilmember Alvarez. But given that, if we move forward with this, we might as well, in my opinion, we might as well just stop going and asking for the revenue measure, because I wouldn't vote for it. I mean, geez. It's like, so the optics of it would just be horrendous. So I'm going to be a big old no on this one. Thank you.
Other comments? Vice Mayor.
I don't know that I would ultimately support it. I think Councilmember Hamilton made some good points about the optics, but I do think it's worth coming back for a discussion and weighing the facts. I mean, honestly, we will be, asking the public to continually support us in our budget issues. But I mean, collectively, we earn about $25,000 a year. Doubling that would be another $25,000. So, I mean, is that going to make or break the budget? Probably. I mean, that's not even a drop in the bucket. So, I don't think it's out of the question to discuss it. Apparently, there's at least some support from the public on it, and I would like to hear from a broader section of the community to see if they would be in favor of it or not. And the arguments that we are hearing from other cities are exactly what Councilmember Hamilton said, is that they feel that there is a lack of interest because people feel that there is not enough compensation. And if they have to cover child care and take time away from work to do this volunteer work, that there should at least be some compensation. It's clearly not enough money for you to quit your job and come do this, but some offset for those expenses, which have absolutely increased over the past 20 years, could be a deterrent to some people to run.
Councilmember Medina.
Yeah, I think it's $448.62. I kind of, if anybody remembers that, is that what it is? I hear the call for agendizing it. I really believe in having discussions as a council, but I will likely be voting no when it comes down to the actual vote. We found a way, a preliminary balanced budget, heads up from our city manager of $4 million, right? The election in districts, I get it, who wants to take on this job when the pay is so little, but I think all of us here, we're not here for the pay. It's probably $1.50 an hour for what we put in at some time, it seems like. And just wanted to clarify, Vice Mayor, it was $25,000 for all of us, the salary. Yeah, just want to make that clear. It wasn't $25,000 each. We make a little bit over $5,000. Those that can take the health care do get health care. I do take the health care. It's a lot of work. So I could agendize it and hear it, but I'm likely going to vote no, because just my gut is this isn't the time to do it. It's never been about the money for any of us, and but I think that to have the discussion, I'm open to it. I think it's fair to have to agendize things and having more people from the public to come in and tell us one way or the other. Right now it's 1 and 1 or 2 and 1, but that's only 3 people. And I bet you the majority of the people are going to say that they don't deserve any more money. But that's just my feeling. So I will wait. We got to get a motion in a second, and we'll have a vote.
And then for myself, I think it is important for us to have the budget taken care of and to see exactly where we sit. And I know other communities, as was alluded to in the Daily Journal, have done some increases. The last time, and I remember, was Chris Palace in 2001 was the last time there was an increase. And he brought that forward, and his rationale was, things cost. As an example, I need to go to Redwood City for the Emergency Services Council and Burlingame for the ambulance for the county. So that is on my gas at this point, my dime. And so all of us are putting in those type of costs. So is that something that maybe we could put in gas mileage? I don't know. In other communities, they do that. So it is, you're correct on the amount. So I think it's, maybe 5,800 or whatever before taxes, possibly. So, but to hear more, and where it may go, it's just a conversation, and maybe to have input. So I could see that too.
Yeah.
Sorry, too.
No, thank you.
Councilmember.
Just before we go to a vote, I just want to reiterate that we will be considering going to putting a revenue measure on the ballot. I think even having the conversation and even having it, even if some of, I've heard now three of us say I'll probably vote no. I think having that conversation could damage our chances for a successful revenue measure. Because it's not out of the realm of possibility of somebody looking at that revenue measure and saying, didn't they just try to give themselves a raise? Even if it's not successful. So I just think this is a really bad time for this. I do.
Through the chair.
Vice Mayor.
One last comment is that the law actually states that we would not be able to impose any raises until after the next election. So conceivably, three of us would not benefit from it. It would be whoever gets elected at the end of this year that would get that raise. So there's that.
Through the mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you for everybody's opinion. I'm open. The reasoning behind this request for open conversation, so I can hear everyone's opinion, including the public. And I just I did my research, and I just think that after 20 years that the council hasn't had any raise yet, and I thought the proposing a measure has not, in my opinion, has nothing to do with proposing an increase after 20 years. It just happened to be that we are proposing a revenue that is also beneficial for, a measure that will also be beneficial to the public. The items that I read are just some of the benefits that the council members are entitled. There are more benefits that basically council members can be equal to the employee, that the city employees that are receiving as a benefit, medical benefit, and more than just the salary that I mentioned to be discussed. But I'm not asking for an approval, I'm asking for a discussion. And I like that. And I just wanted to address the member of the public for your question, do I deserve to have a raise? My decision that I make as a council member is based on the whole community, not for one group and one of the other group. We decide and make our decision because we vote. And if you feel that I don't deserve, I am a newly elected official, and by law, if we approved the raise of the salary of the council members, everyone should have a raise, not just the four of them and not include me, and that's by law. But what I'm saying is, if we are proposing to increase the salary, we need to agendize it to hear the opinion of the public. If we cannot, if you feel that we don't deserve to have a raise, we will fully accept it. It has to be by ordinance. If we don't choose to elect or decide, we can put the decision to the measure as well, so the public can decide if the council member will be worth increasing our salary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So on the agenda is council compensation, which is not just salary, but it could include mileage reimbursement. It could include, the council does receive or is eligible, I mean, our family would get it if we passed. It's $10,000 for life insurance. The employees receive 40, if my memory is correct. So compensation to me is a broader discussion, doesn't mean specifically a salary. So anyway, just for clarity, if I'm correct on that statement, City Attorney?
I think it could be as broad as you would like it to be if you're looking to take advantage of all the benefits that are allowed under the government code. Your discussion could include that as well.
Okay, so, okay, is there action from, is there any more discussion? Any action from council on the item?
I move the motion to approve for the council member salary to be agendized. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Increase the salary of the council members to be agendized.
So compensation, council compensation is is that the motion?
I think the motion.
That's what's
is the
stated on the
salary.
agenda.
I think it's in all.
The mayor would like the discussion to be broader than just salary.
Oh,
Because it says council compensation, so that's what's on the agenda.
It's your motion.
yeah, I think my motion is just the salary.
Just the salary.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a motion.
I will second her motion.
Motion and seconded. Everybody understand?
Yeah.
Okay. Please. No, please.
Is it allowed to, if it says it in the agenda, you got to do what it says on the agenda, right?
Yeah.
City Attorney?
I don't see so for the purposes of the Brown Act, you've agendized a discussion about council member compensation.
Okay,
You've had the
got it, I got it.
discussion here. I think if you wanted to narrow the scope of that consideration at a future council meeting, I don't see a Brown Act concern with that.
Yeah, I mean, for myself, I think it should be more of a broad discussion, but it's your motion. The motion is to have it in regards to salary specific. And did you second? Okay. There's been a motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
And I voted no.
Okay, so it doesn't move forward.
So it does not move forward. I had wanted it for the more broader. Okay, any other council comments from, yes, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I did want to address some of the comments I heard earlier, just in regard to the council's position on hate in general. And I just want to emphasize and remind the public that the council, the San Bruno City Council, has publicly denounced hate in any form on several occasions. And I will double down on that, and I will say that I personally denounce any form of hate, any kind of violence in our community. We heard from the police chief earlier, and thank you, Chief, for helping clarify some of what was being said. I know it's not always obvious to the public what's happening after an incident, but I do believe that the city has taken that specific incident seriously. I personally spoke to the city manager and expressed my concern about that situation and my emphasis that I do want to make sure that any incident like that is treated seriously and addressed appropriately. I believe it will be. It's an open case, so I don't want to say anything further than that, but I did want to let the public know that the council does take these things seriously. We do continue to denounce any sort of violence in our community, and I've heard suggestions from the public about things that we might do as a city to try to promote some healing, and I'm definitely open to those. If the community members want to come forward and work on those, I would absolutely support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And if there's not anything else, then I was going to say, you kind of spoke to it, and I wanted it to be known that, I had a briefing from the police chief in regards to that incident. And so to understand better, it is a current case, so can't really go into it further. But the comments that were made as far as healing, as far as coming together, finding things of interest in common, I think is excellent, and I appreciate those comments. And, in January, I had put together something to condemn the racism and all of those elements. It wasn't desired at that time, but I also, and I think this council does not condone, concur, or stand for any type of activity or violence or anybody pulling over and having an altercation. That is not what any of us, I believe, agree, stand with, or stand for, or stand by. And I believe the police department, from what my understanding is doing the right thing and going through the process that is required by law, and it is being taken serious. I just had two things. I was asked that there is a pancake breakfast that is going to be at Station 51 we all know where that is. And that is going to be on the morning of June 2nd, 2024. All proceeds benefit the San Bruno Professional Firefighters Association Charitable Fund, and that is 8:30 to 11:30. Also, just as far as our Caltrain station, I wanted to say that I want to thank Caltrain because over the last few months, they've taken care of the elevator replacements for the vandalism. The lighting underneath the underpass was repaired in December of 2023, and now they've replaced a string of lights on 2024. I found out that they own that still. So that's why the lights are now back on, is because they had to take the ownership and do it. We know that in February they replaced the 3 pumps for pumping during the storm. Graffiti abatement, I want to thank them, which had to work with BART and Caltrain on this wall that's off Euclid and Huntington. The fountain, the city manager has been working with the executive director over at Caltrain to see if what we can do to repair it and have an agreement. And then on the, obviously, the San Antonio dumping, I will tell you, in calling the garbage company, if there are large items that are in the Caltrain right-of-way, Recology won't pick those up. That had to be called into Caltrain, and then they had to send somebody out. And obviously, all the no dumping signs are there. So I just wanted to thank the city manager for following through with the fountain. Still yet for more to do, but working with it. So if there's nothing else, thank you, staff. Thank you to the audience and to everybody's participation. We'll go ahead and adjourn to the next regular city council meeting, which will be held on May 28, 2024 at 7 p.m. Meeting adjourned.